I'd like to call to order the Frankfort Plant Board Special Board Meeting of Friday, December 17th, 2021 at 2 o'clock. We're holding this meeting in lieu of our regular meeting, which would have occurred next week. And because of the holiday week, we're holding the meeting today. But this is a special meeting, so under that, we will only be considering items that are on the agenda, and no new items can be discussed. But this is the meeting in lieu of our regular board meeting this month. So the first item is the consider approval of the minutes of November 6th. Oh, first, Madam Secretary, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Member DeLong?
Here.
Member Cubine?
Here.
Member Mason?
Here.
Member Snyder?
Here.
Member Dutton Mitchell?
Here.
Well, everybody's in attendance. We've got a quorum. Next item is consider approval of the minutes of November 16th, 2021 board meeting. Everybody should have them in front of them. Does anybody have any changes or corrections? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Minutes are adopted. Next is item 2.2, consider approval of the minutes of December 1st, 2021 board meeting. Everybody should have those in front. Do we have any changes or corrections? Seeing none, I need a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are adopted. Item 3, financial statements. Mr. Denton.
Yes, good afternoon. The Frankfort Plant Board has a fiscal year end at June 30th of each year. So we're looking at the first 5 months of our fiscal year 22 year. So our board reports are starting on page 33. We have for you the statement of net position, the statement of revenues, expenses, and change in net assets for all 3 divisions in our departments. Our cash and investment schedule, along with where we are on long-term debt, and our 2 most used check registers for our 2 most used checking accounts. As you can see, for the first 5 months of the year, very much in line with where we were a year ago, and we are in line with budget estimates through these first 5 months. I'd be glad to go in depth on any items or provide any additional analysis that the board may want, but that's we're doing okay through the first 5 months.
Where do we stand in terms of our past dues?
Past dues, we've come down another $100,000 from last month. We're approximately $1.1 million in bills that have rolled past due from last month. Our historical balance is around $780,000 prior to the pandemic, so we're moving in the right direction. We have received a lot of assistance from third-party funds, which has helped us quite a bit, that I know Cassie will cover in our customer service report.
Okay. Any questions, David, about any of the financial information? And for the public watching, all that information is available online if anybody wants to look at that information in any further detail. Next item is item 4, public. Oh, we need a motion to
Mr.
accept
Chairman,
the financials.
I make a motion to accept the financial statement.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
So moved.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Financials are adopted. Ms. Poe, do we have anyone signed up to either speak or any web comments?
No, sir, neither one.
Okay. Next item is on the presentation of the Destiny Award, our workers' comp. Oh, and Ms. Phillips, bad news is the retirement system has rejected your retirement. So you're going to have to stay on for another year. But go on, Kim.
Well, don't jinx me. I'm waiting on some paperwork. So
Okay.
Today I've got Eli Roberts with Kimi, and Charlie Hamilton's also on the call with Powell Walton Millward. Kimi is our workers' compensation carrier, and Charlie Hamilton is our agent. And I think Eli is probably going to do a little presentation for us today. So
Okay. Eli?
I'll turn it over to him.
Good afternoon. Hope you all are doing well. It's good to see everyone. This is probably, I don't know, this is kind of become pretty common for you all, but here today to give you all the 2021 Kimi Destiny Award. I think this is y'all's 10th year winning the award. So congratulations on that. Being from Frankfurt myself, I always like to see your all's name pop up. It makes me proud. And before COVID, I really enjoyed coming down, and you always fed me well. So I always enjoyed that too. And but tell you a little bit about the Destiny Award. Basically, every year we get together as a safety department and try to determine which one of our policyholders are deserving of the Destiny Award. And really, to be honest, there's some criteria that goes into it, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. We have about 21,000 policyholders statewide here in Kentucky, and it's kind of hard so we put some criteria in place to obviously narrow that search down. One of the first ones we establish is you have to be a preferred pricing customer of ours, which basically we have 2 tiers of business, and you have to be in that preferred tier, which is our better tier, just on your pricing, and that drops the list down to about 1,000. It's right at about 1,000 policyholders. You have to have a premium of at least $30,000, and then you have to be at least a Kimi policyholder for 3 consecutive years. That kind of dwindles it down, obviously, and then we kind of start getting into more of the safety and the loss exposure. Beyond that, you have to have a loss ratio, which is just basically an insurance term of how your losses stack up against how much premium you pay, how much premium you pay Kimi, and it has to be below 45%. Just to give you an idea of what your all's is, it's at a 25%, which is great. That's really kind of unbelievable because y'all have been with us for so long. And generally, when the company's been with us so long, we see a few bad years that kind of creep that percentage up. So 25% is awesome on your all's part. From that, we also require that you have a minimum of a 0.80 or less on an experience modification rate. Your all's is a 0.62, which, to be honest, is I don't see very many that low. And it's a real testament to you all from an employee standpoint, and then also your safety program from what JC and Kim do. They really, I mean, that's just an awesome rating, and I don't see very many lower than that. And to do what you all do on a daily basis, I mean, just, it's unbelievable. This year from that, we had 31 policyholders win the award. From that group. So basically y'all were one of 31 of 1,000 of 21,000 people that we chose. It's just really, to be honest, it's just a testament to what y'all do from a safety standpoint, your all's dedication as a company to drive that safe work environment for your employees. And I mean, 10 years in a row, there may be 1 or 2 other companies that we've given the award to 10 years. There's not very many. And for y'all to do what you do, that's a huge accomplishment. And, we really appreciate you all working with us and everything you do from a safety standpoint. And then also just from a claim standpoint, underwriting, and kind of everything you all do from a communication standpoint. I call, anybody in the safety department calls Kim or JC or whoever, and they're always there to help. We do send out a questionnaire that basically, I think we asked Kim to tell us a little bit about their safety program, but to be honest, we can tell y'all that before we even send it. So always willing to help and work with us. And it's great to have y'all as customers, and congratulations on the award.
Thank you. And I know I can't, I think the board all feels the same as Kim and her staff and all of our employees are really conscientious, and they do an incredible job. And so if we didn't have this good of a safety rating and we weren't in this top group, how much more would it probably cost us a year percentage wise for workers' comp?
Well, I mean, I can tell you right now, you're almost paying 40% less than what people do in your similar role, depending on your classification as a company. So, mm-hmm. I mean, if you line somebody else up that does another utility or another someone that's very similar to you all, we rate everybody at a 1.0. And so when you come in at a 0.62, you're almost right there, 40% less of what they should be paying in premium.
So That is
But I
great.
might say too, that, that discount, the 0.62, which is a 38% discount, dollar wise, is saving you $85,757 a year.
Yeah.
But don't tell Kim that.
She's on there, she knows.
Oh, I track it, trust me. But I want to just interject that, you know, I guess it makes me a safety nerd, or I've been doing it too long to get teary-eyed about workers' comp, but but I really appreciate the partnership that Kimi and Charlie has. They're always, if we have training issues or need help figuring out a claim, you know, they are bend over backwards to help us. So they've really been good partners, and I've worked with comp carriers that weren't such good partners, and it makes a big difference to employees, the staff, you know, it makes things go a lot smoother. So I appreciate them a lot.
Does anybody have any questions for Kim or Charlie or for Eli?
Ms.
Job well
Cuban,
done.
Ms. Cuban, this year is, you know, I
Yes, sir.
appreciate Kim and all the safety team, and appreciate Kimi and Mr. Hampton. I mean, really help us all the time this year. But on the bottom line, there's another part is all our employees.
Yes.
Every day. They really put effort, constantly think about the safety. It's the most important to us. We want everyone can go home safely.
I usually
every
like
day.
to throw in my favorite thing to throw in is that our frontline supervisors, boy, they really bear the brunt of what goes on safety wise, compliance. Without their leadership in the field and contributions and just being so conscientious, you know, it would be a whole different story. It's certainly not two people in the safety department that turn in claims and write up programs that when they're supposed to. So I really appreciate all of our employees and frontline supervisors. They are kind of our heroes as far as taking the safety message. So.
Any other comments or questions for Kim or Charlie or Eli? Charlie, does Kim, she won't answer the question, does Kim have 85,000 stashed somewhere? You're all not answering either. Nobody wants.
If she is, she's not sharing with me.
Okay. Seriously, thank you all for everything you all do.
Thank you for everything you do.
Appreciate it.
For having us.
Next item is informational items, department reports, event.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cuban on the board. The departmental reports start on page 105, and the telecom report. The triple call was down for the month, and we had about 8 outages on November 3rd, and it appeared to be a power surge in the area. But there were some power supply issues, some water damage, and a node board are kind of the things that happened there simultaneously. During the storm on Friday night, Saturday morning last week, the cable department had some minor damage, some blown fuses and a couple of areas, Louisville Road, Stedman Town, Justice Lane. There was a tree that came down there. So most of them were cleared except node 55, which is Stedman Town and Justice Lane. And again, we had to wait a while on that one until Sunday morning because we were waiting on other utilities to set poles before our telecom folks could get in there and fix that. But compared to what many people in the state saw, that was a fairly minor. So we got by pretty decently there. Adam, do you want to jump in and give us a next band report?
Sure. Next band right now, the installation crew, our crew, construction installation crew are working in Shadrick Ferry, turning those customers on. We've talked about like last month, it's a lot of aerial to underground, longer drops being put underground, things of that nature. The construction crew, the contract crew is working in node 34, the underground, which is the Augusta subdivision, over off Carwell Lane. We're actually pulling in and starting to splice fiber in node 14, which is the Ridgeview area. They're hanging and splicing fiber on Hickory Drive, East Main. I don't know if y'all get out in the neighborhoods a little bit, you'll see some pretty good sized cable kind of wound up at the poles. That's a lot of our new fiber that's been installed. And then when they come in and set the cabinet to splice it, they clean everything back up. We started another call campaign in the Collins Lane area. We're taking orders there and getting those scheduled and getting ready for our launch probably in mid-January. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Adam?
I have just a question about the
Sure.
reports and on the customer service penetration report, it has a chart with 2017, 2020, and 2021 for comparisons. And I just noticed like on our SEPA and our water distribution and water treatment reports, those use 2016, 2021 to compare with 2020 to compare with 21. I was just wondering why we picked 2017 to include on the telecom chart. Or the other.
I don't know why, but we can pretty much pick anything. I guess it was just trending data. Maybe we moved up a year and the other departments didn't move. I don't know. We can do whatever the board would like if you want them all to match.
Would you like him to go and add that year on there, Catherine?
Well, it would be kind of good if we matched. So I don't know what's the most appropriate.
That's fine. We
I
can.
think the
For next
original.
meeting, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a report that we generate each month. I'm sure it wouldn't be no problem just to go back and grab the other year so it matches the other departments.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the original plan years ago when we kind of started doing this was to put the last 2 years, the current year, the last year, and then maybe as a snapshot, we went back 4, 5, 6 years before. So I think that's probably was the mindset originally, but we can make sure to get those years all consistently.
And
And
on
if, again,
there,
if the board does,
on that chart with the years, and it the first line is the budget. So for instance, like the budget for classic or limited cable, budget for preferred. Can you explain what the budget is? I mean, is that literally what we budgeted?
Yes, the budget is what we budgeted this fiscal year for customer accounts. So let me try to, I scrolled too far. Let me try to get back on that report. Hang on just a second.
And if we're below what that budget shows, is that a good or a bad thing?
If we're below the budget, it's bad. That means that we don't have the customers. And, you know, a lot of times like local phone, we kind of trended because we knew we were losing phones. So like the year before last, we budgeted a larger loss than we should have. And so based on when we prepare the budget, we're trying to estimate where we're going to be. And most of the time we come out pretty close, but you know, with cable TV and telephone, that's kind of been hard because we've projected a lot of different things over the last couple of years. And some years it's like we didn't lose as many, then the next year we'll catch back up. So that kind of varies from year to year.
Okay. Because of all those charts, basically broadband is where we're above budget.
Right.
And one last question about the amplifier
Yes.
issue. So, because I noticed like there were 0 last year and 5 this year. What is that?
The amplifier, we have 2,500 of those in the systems. So basically, when we get to the neighborhood, we'll drop from a optical node to a amplifier, and that we're amplifying the coax signal, so the copper signal. And a lot of times like this, we try to put them in buckets, and a lot of them are blown fuses. So if we get a power surge or a storm or something, line gets a short in it, it'll blow a fuse. But we just try to pick the device that had the issue. So we might have an amplifier with a bad board, but it's still, we try to put it in the appropriate device that had the failure so we can kind of track those things.
I mean, is that because of possibly storms?
Yeah, those 3 of those were the same time. That was, we had a power surge, I think it was a Sunday morning. And Yeah, the ones that were November the 21st. That was a power surge that we had, and it blew a lot of fuses because each one of those amplifiers could have up to 4 fuses. So depending on what leg, uh, what happened, they could blow all 4. So
Okay, all right, thank you.
okay.
Any other questions for Adam? If not, potential or agreed upon related party transactions. We have none to report there. Customer service, Vint.
I will, if you're fine, I'll continue with the electric and let Cassie do the
Sure.
customer service. Okay. So the electric report starts on page 113 to 116. That's the standard report you're used to seeing. Again, just we did have some minor issues Friday night, Saturday morning with the storm, just like Adam and the telecom department did. Louisville Road and some various places, and they were, relatively minor. We got those knocked out on Saturday morning, and then the folks that were working on that, a number of those went on down to Princeton and Western Kentucky to help them with storm damage. I've got a couple of slides. If the board will entertain that, I will share my screen here and
Sure.
see if I can see. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right, let's see if this works. Can you see the full picture?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So these are the guys that went down, kind of left to right there. I'll just mention them on the meeting here. Matt Quarles, Eric Brown, July Taylor, Stephen Riddle, Michael Colligan, Michael Tracy, Russell Goins, and the foreman of the crew was Mike Aldridge. So they left, they worked the Friday night, so I guess it would be early Saturday morning on the issues we had in town. And then they got themselves ready and they headed out about 2 or 3 o'clock on Saturday to get down there. Had a few issues on the way down there, and they were able to get down to Princeton at about 10 o'clock at night, and they immediately started working once they got there. And so these are the guys before they left out. And then they got down to Princeton, and of course, these are some of the sites that they saw when they got down there. They started working immediately that night. They did get some folks some power back on even that night. I think Scott told me they worked till about 4 in the morning that first night. So between what they did here and what they did down here, that was, a good long 24 hours there. So anyway, these are some of the sites you can see that they saw down there. This is the University of Kentucky Research and Education Center. Kathy Lindsay had a video live from there yesterday. You may have seen that on our Facebook page.
And Vint,
In the lower right hand.
Vint, this is all in Princeton, right?
This is Princeton. This is actually kind of to the southeast or east-southeast of Princeton. I don't think it went through the middle of downtown Princeton, but they're caught neighborhood and the country club and all that's to the south, be southwest of Princeton, got hit pretty good, I think, and then it came across to this area. So this research facility was relatively new. The picture in the lower right-hand corner is actually from an article that the University of Kentucky did. So I'll give credit for that picture. That was Matt Barton with the UK Agriculture Communications did the aerial view. But that gives you a pretty good idea of how badly it leveled that building. And then the larger picture there is one that Mike took for us down there. So that was some of the area they've been dealing with. So again, at night, they got right into it and started working. They're working 16-hour shifts, and then they have, a few hours off to get some sleep. So basically, if they're awake, they're working, and other than that, they're sleeping primarily is what they've been doing. So again, just some more areas where they're at. You can see areas are completely, scrubbed clean. So pitching in, I think OMU's been there, Paducah was there, and the plant board, and they had some contractors. So again, these guys working here, it's hard for me to tell with the picture. I don't know if that's JT or who that is eating the chicken there. I don't know if they worked some deal with Marathon Gas here, if they got their lights back on, they got chicken. But anyway, that's really, joking aside, that's kind of how they have to eat is it's kind of right off the back of the truck and, keep working. And that's the kind of dedication they have for these kind of things. Again, more pictures. I think Mike and them took these. You can see kind of the area they're in, extremely flat, but again, pretty much laid bare. So again, that's kind of some of the things the guys have seen and been working on. Did that did my screen come back to normal?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, that's kind of some of the stuff they've been doing. Scott has been on the phone. Scott Hudson has been on the phone with them quite a bit over the last couple of days, figuring out what's the next step. Princeton is pretty much done what they can do right now. There's of course lots more damage, but you don't have people getting ready to move into houses and things, so they don't need any more work right now. We talked about our guys going to Mayfield, but to be honest, Mayfield is so devastated. They're still trying to even get together their plan of restoring power. Their substation's been decimated. They don't have anything. So they're completely back to square one. And probably after the holidays, as Mayfield gets their plan set up, the other municipal utilities and other folks in Kentucky will probably start to rotate through there and help them build that system back. But I am happy to say that the guys will be coming back tomorrow. They're working their shift today with Princeton. They're going to get a good night's sleep there. Princeton's going to feed them supper and breakfast, and then they're going to head back home tomorrow. So they will be home for the holidays. And after that's all over, again, we'll see, working with Mayfield or whoever else needs our help, we will start into that next phase. But as of right now, the immediate need has subsided for our linemen and what they were doing. So we do appreciate those guys and all they've done. You know, they took off at a moment's notice and volunteered to go down there. You know, that's the one thing I'd like the board to understand is our crews in water, our crews in telecom, and all the other electric crews and the folks we have. A lot of them, they didn't have the opportunity. There wasn't a need to bring the telecom folks down. There wasn't a need to bring the water folks, but they absolutely are the same type of people. They would all volunteer at a moment's notice. These kind of situations are what they do here when we have outages, and these particular folks volunteered. We had other people in the electric department that would volunteer as well. We couldn't send everyone. We need to keep folks here to deal with our issues we might have, of course. But it's just what those guys did is really good. They didn't know if they were going to be down there through Christmas when they volunteered, but they didn't matter to them. They went down there and they wanted to help. And that attitude, to be honest with you, is the same thing I've seen from all of our different construction crews. It's the same attitude that wins the Destiny Award 10 years in a row. And so I do want to just say really a great job to those guys that actually got in there and went. And thank you to them. Thank you for all they've done for those people down there. So anyway, next month, you know, Kathy Lindsay and the media folks have gone down there. They've gotten some video. They've done interviews. So they'll have some of those videos and stuff for the board at the January meeting. So you'll be able to see more then, and that'll be interesting to see. I think they're going to have a number of things on Facebook and you know, around 10, they'll have more and more of those interviews. So anybody interested in seeing that, please tune into those shows and we'll have more of that. So
I know, Vint, you and Gary and Kathy are talking about some way at the January meeting, recognizing those, the workers and what they did more formal. And I'm sure everybody saw on Facebook and everything, comments from all over the community, and everybody in this community was behind them and supporting them and appreciate the fact they went down and helped someone else. So, I mean, I forget how many comments I saw posted, but it was a lot of people commenting about the fact that we were down there helping another community. So that was great.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just want to thank Vint for sharing those pictures with us and a little bit of this story. And truly, these employees have made Plant Board and Frankfort and Franklin County proud. And I know it just wasn't the employees, but their families, because those kind of things are always family decisions, you know. And so we appreciate the sacrifice the families made, and then all of you all back here holding the fort down when we had this whole, you know, crew gone. So thank you all.
Cuba, you know,
Yes,
I really appreciate all you comment from the board. You know, one thing I want to update a little bit is the general manager from Princeton called me. They really appreciate the effort our linemen put in, particularly they continue 16-hour every day, and safely they done that work. So it's a great job. that's pretty much I want to update. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else want to make any comments or whatever at this point?
I would say one other thing if I could. I did read a story that you guys may have seen. It may have been on our Facebook page, but there was a family down there who was dealing with the loss of their home and everything. And while our guys were waiting on some more equipment and stuff, rather than sitting there, again, they're working hour after hour after hour. And rather than sitting there doing nothing, they went over and started helping this person out and, helping them get the stuff out of their house. And I think all those guys jumping in there apparently helped move a lot of the debris out of the way for that family that were doing something. And, when they had every right in the world to sit down and just take a break, which, waiting on some equipment,
Right.
instead they went next door to whoever was there and pitched in and helped. So I think that person put something on Facebook about that, but, they're down there helping and then they just help again and again. So I think we should all be proud of them. They did a great job.
Yeah. Yes, they did.
If there aren't any more comments on that one right now, I would turn it over to Travis to give us the AMI report for the month.
Sure, I'll be quick because we're pretty steady state on AMI. We're at a little over 3,200 installations for electric and a little over 2,300 for water. We may slow down a little bit over the next few months, actually not due to material shortages this time, but just due to weather. With temperatures getting ready to go below freezing, we may have to pause here and there, but otherwise, kind of business as usual on AMI.
Okay. Okay, Ben?
Okay, if there's no more questions on AMI, I'll move to the CEPA report, which is pages 117 through 119. And you'll notice for the month of October, our we cleared $59,715. So for the calendar year, that puts us at almost $1.3 million. If you flip over on page 119, you will see our historical amount of money that we have been able to realize from CEPA. And by October of this calendar year, we're now at the largest amount we've been able to realize through CEPA this year. So it has worked out well for us this year. And again, we got 2 more months to go. I think for the budget for the last couple of fiscal years, our budget has been about 830,000. So we are trending above budget on this particular item. So that's good.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Water report.
Mr.
Water
Chairman.
report is on
Hold
page 1.
Mr. Chairman.
Ben, hold on. Does somebody have a question?
Yeah, Vint, back to the CPO. Is the over budget is most of that what happened in February with the problems that were going on in Texas and all that other stuff? Is that where we got most of that amount over the budget?
That was a big chunk of it. If you look on page 118, you will see the red bar is kind of how this year has trended compared to others. And February jumps right out at you on the chart. And that, again, because of the issues that were going on the national power grid at that time, that energy had a really high price on the market. So that has made a big difference, but you'll notice most of the months we have trended better than what we have in the past. So yes, absolutely. February is a big driver there, but I believe we would be ahead of our budgetary number even without that.
You think
Just
that trend
not
will
much.
continue, Ben?
Again, big chunks of it have to do with market and where it is. I don't know. We will, before we get to the budget year, we sit down with the folks and try to figure out what the CEPA numbers would be. Everything I've seen, I believe we will at least be where we're at, but I don't know that we'll have this kind of year again.
Okay.
Excuse by Ms. Garrison. The part of it is, part of it is the overall portfolio keep being managed for us. One benefit I do want to mention that because that's a part of a carbon-free energy we can receive.
Yes.
So there's another part of benefit, roughly almost 5% that energy, can be carbon-free.
Right. Hey, Ben?
That's an excellent point. So the water report is on page 123 to 125. The construction crews are continuing the installation on the 30-inch feed into the back of the reservoir as we're working on that particular project. The crews also are continuing with the line replacement project over on Highland Parkway. and again, dealing with services. So it's been, they've been busy, but luckily nothing major in the water department. Normally I'd have a reservoir report here right now, but if the board would be fine, Sharmista and David both have agenda items that pertain to the reservoir. And when they get to those agenda items, they'll just kind of cover that, if that would be fine with the board.
Okay.
And on page 127 is the water treatment plant report. And for the month of November, they treated 217.39 million gallons of water for an average daily production of 7.25 million gallons. Lock 4 averaged 4,088 cubic feet per second for a daily average of 2.5 billion gallons per day going past Lock 4. There were 2 inches of rainfall recorded for the month of October. And currently the water treatment plant is working on some of our items for some of our SCADA project, hardware and software issues on that. So that's something they're dealing with right now. That kind of wraps up the report I had. I'll be happy to answer anything you want on my report. And if you're done with me, I'll pass it off to Cassie Estel for customer service, but any questions the board may have.
Anybody have any questions for Vint? Okay, if not, Cassie?
Good morning, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it is afternoon, not morning. I apologize. The customer service reports are on pages 109 to 112 of your board packet. Just some highlights to give the board for this month. We have 519 customers currently participating in the EBB program. So that number continues to grow. And then we have our payment plan accounts that hit that pandemic high that we've talked about of around 4,800 is down to 500. So we're continuing to make significant progress in getting back to normal business flow and people being able to maintain their utility accounts better than they could during the height of the pandemic. And the Kentucky Housing Healthy at Home program continues to send us funds. They've assisted 415 households approximately that are our customers to a little over $672,000 we've received through that program so far. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have about the customer service portion of the reports if you have any.
Any questions for Cassie?
Ms. Cuban, I like
Yes,
it.
sir.
Add in a little bit. It's a part of her report, Cassie. Cassie and her team done very good job in last 2 months in a row. Our customer average waiting time below 60 seconds.
Wow.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
The first, I noticed on the weekly report about the EBB program that part of what y'all have to deal with is correcting errors in the applications. Is that errors on the part of the applicants?
Typically they are. We get a report from our IT department regularly regarding those errors, and we attempt to contact the customer. Sometimes it's as simple as a typo where the information, the systems have to match identically. There can't be a typo of any sort in the name spelling or in any of the numbers, or it won't recognize it to push the approval through. So most of the time we find the errors are something minor to that degree. We are able to contact the customer, walk through each piece of it with them, make those corrections, and then resubmit it, and then they go through okay.
All right. Well, and I appreciate y'all going that extra mile to get them through.
Yes, ma'am. Any that we get, we contact usually the next business day if we can reach them and try to go over the application to see what caused the error. Sometimes the information matches and they're still rejected. So we'll encourage the customer to just go in and try to reapply to see if they can get it to go through, and that works as well sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the extra time and effort that takes on your all's part.
Thank you.
On the charts, just for ease of comparison, is there a way to add other years and months to the charts?
We can certainly add any information you would like to see. Customer service before did not have the type of detailed reports that the other departments had. We recently added these just a few months ago at the request of a board member, and we're happy to add or change those to any additional information that you all feel like is relevant and that you would like to review each month. If someone would just get that to me, we'd be happy to facilitate that for you. I don't know that we have some of this data because we haven't always had the same tracking. Some of the systems we use to track phone calls and in-office customers switched from manual to electronic just within the last 2 to 3 years. So we may not be able to go back as far as others, but we can certainly go back as far as we're able to for you.
Okay. Well, like on the second chart, or not second, I guess. Third page, second chart, it for the curbside lobby customers, it has a color for 2020, but there is no 2020 data. So I don't know if that fits into that because you all didn't track it the same way last year or not.
We did not, because we had the lobby closed the entire year and we weren't tracking the curbside. I think that's why those are not on there, but I'm happy to go back and look and see any data we have and start to include it. We had gotten to a point where the lobby had been closed for so long, there was nothing to compare it to.
All right.
Catherine,
but we
what
have
would you,
been tracking our curbside, Ms. Dutton Mitchell, so I will certainly add that back to that report for you.
Catherine, would you like to see, what would you like to see, like November 21 compared to November 2020? Or would you like to see like for example, on that chart you're looking at, like payment arrangements, payments, like maybe a couple other bars that might show the last 3 months comparison or something? What do you think would be most helpful?
Well, you know, I don't want to throw a lot more work on, but as we look at most of the other charts, we're able to see through this year monthly comparison, and then we're able to track like last year, and then either like, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, just to it just makes it easy to kind of see any kind of trends, things like that, if we have the data, and if it's not going to, you know, take up too much time trying to. I'm assuming once you establish your chart, it's easy to carry it forward.
Cassie, could I ask you a favor?
Yes, sir.
Would you look at a couple different formats and what data you have, and maybe get with Catherine and show her a couple formats and see kind of which one she thinks might be the most informative? Then we'll take another look at it next month.
Yes, sir. I can reach out to her after, and I will double check with IT. I believe a lot of the information we have regarding the number of customers coming into the office and the number of calls and those wait times, the in-office electronic tracking is, I think, transferred in 17 or 18. We manually did that up until that time frame, so we wouldn't be able to go back much further than that, but I can definitely get with them and find the exact start for that data so that we can add it to it.
All right.
Catherine, would you mind doing that and letting Cassie show you a couple formats?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Well, we got safety.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Cuban. I think they were going to have Mr. Darren Rambo do the knock and then move on to safety, if that's okay. I think he's standing by to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, good afternoon. The knock department, looks like in November, we took about 1,992 phone calls. And for the locate department in November, we did, excuse me, 533 locates. So that made about, I think the total 7,727 for the year. So they're still quite busy as always. Everything else seems to be going smoothly. We have a couple of employees dealing with COVID like everyone else, but they're actually still working remotely. So no real issues to report.
Okay. Any questions for Darren?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I might as well sound like a broken record. It again, for comparison, is there a way we can add more data to the chart so we can see trends from through this year and comparison total with other years?
Yeah, sure we can.
Okay.
You know, we've only been doing the knock report for what, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years, but yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll reconfigure it to show more data.
Yeah, because we'd actually subbed it out and then we brought it back in house. So, yeah.
And can we just shoot for like February on any of this these reporting updates because of the holidays and all that. I don't want it to push it. So can we just shoot for February?
Sure. Is that okay with the rest of the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Next item, is it time for safety? Or Kim?
Well, mine's short and sweet. If we're going to me, it's we don't have any accidents to report for
Okay.
November.
All right, good. Okay. Gary or Vint, you gonna talk about Kimi?
I would, Kimi actually cancel our board meeting this month. The reason is that there's so much effort people put in for the West Kentucky
Yes.
rescue, all the help. So they just have exactly a committee kind of meeting to really prove that a settlement.
Mhm.
The board approved last time. That's the only report I have for the KBMEA.
Do you want to talk, Gary, while you're on, you want to talk about administration? Any comments you have, or did Kathy want to talk, or?
I don't have any additional. I can ask Casey Lindsay if she can contribute any additional since she had a trip to West Kentucky.
Yeah.
Casey.
Yep, I'll just give just a brief synopsis on. We did the Around 10 crew did go yesterday to Western Kentucky. We had gathered a van full of donations that we had come in from the community and from our employees that brought stuff in. We had a contact at Hopkins County Schools where they have a donation distribution center there at elementary school. So we got in touch with them and got a list of their needs, gathered all that up and went down to Western Kentucky. We stopped there and unloaded and took a tour of the distribution center. We interviewed the organizers there. And when we walked out, there was a food truck there from Kentucky State University. So we went over and interviewed them. The person running it was from feedlouisville.org, and K-State had done an agreement with them to let them use the truck to go down and have it down there to feed the people that need hot meals right now. So we interviewed the founder of feedlouisville.org, and we'll have an interview with that. We saw a lot of devastation that, Mike's been sending us pictures, but until you're just standing in the middle of it, it just really doesn't grab you like that. So while we were stopped in one area, we were parked in what had been the driveway of a home that was no longer there. And we were taking some video and pictures and stuff. And the couple whose home that was got there, and they stopped and said this was their home. We had a conversation with them because we had already decided that the people who owned that house must not have been there because there was just no way that anybody could have survived that. But they were there and they told us their story. They were there. I mean, there was nothing left of it. And I was like, well, how did you survive? And they were like, we have no idea. And it took them about an hour to dig out. They'd hid they had put their son in the bathtub and laid on top of him. And it was just, they were just kind of start all over, and they just weren't sure how they were going to do it. And it was just very moving. And then we heard stories like that all day. And then people that were helping and volunteering, the organizers at the distribution center who are all volunteers, obviously, and the people serving the food were volunteers. Then we got over to Princeton. We hooked up with our crew there. We did do an interview with Chris Burton, who works at the Princeton Electric Plant Board and was kind of in charge of all the crews that were coming in. We interviewed him, and it was an amazing interview because, he's talking about, he just couldn't say enough about our crew and about how thankful they were and what good guys they are. And but then, he's telling me all of the stuff that he's doing. And then I learned that he lost his home. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. He goes, my wife and family are safe. We're staying with somebody else right now. And I told him I just had to go to work and we'll worry about our house once we get all the power back on. So it was an amazing day.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you all for going down there. And
yeah, we're going to be sharing all those stories. We've got stuff happening on social media. We're doing, and we interviewed Mike Aldridge from our crew, and we went and took pictures of them. And our guys are so funny because they just want to work. And they're like, They don't want us to be on camera. They don't want to talk. They're like, you do the camera stuff and we'll just be back here.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But yeah, we're going to be showing all of those interviews. We're putting together a video package to show for you all at the board meeting next month. And then also we'll have it on the show. We're going to put it on our community page on our website, and just all kinds of different outlets that we're going to be sharing the story of not only what our guys are doing down there, but all of the efforts of volunteers and how people can help and you know, send any donations they have. And there's opportunities if people want to go down and help with cleanup and rebuild. The city's got some options of stuff people can do. So we're just going to share all that information.
Ms.
Thank you.
Kuba, you know, very briefly, the conversation I had with the general manager from Princeton last Sunday, and some of the stories are pretty amazing. I will make it really short. He told me his whole family, they are fine, but their neighbor less than 200 yards, only foundation left. And he also said happened the evening like at 10 o'clock. And I saw the strong wind take a long time. He said, not really, just take a 1 second, maybe 2. That's the whole thing happened that quick.
Wow.
Usually I remember, you know, around his house, a lot of trees. He said, there are no more, there are no tree left.
Yeah, they're gone.
And, they all gone.
Amazing.
And he also said in that night, all their employees supposed to try to fix the line, you know, burn power back. He said, actually, instead, most their people spend the most time try to pull people out. He said they probably never see so much blood, you know, in that evening. But good things is, he said there's no casualty. It's amazing they have.
Yeah.
But that's probably need to really stop somewhere. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody have any other questions for Vint or anybody else making a report, or Gary or Kathy? Okay. If not, we'll move on to item 7.1. Consider approval of change order number 1 for the water storage improvement project for $60,080. Ms. Dutta.
Good afternoon. Before I get started, I think David wants to give a quick construction update, so I'll turn it over to him and then I'll jump back in with this change order request.
Okay.
Good afternoon, board. We had a construction progress meeting on December the 9th. We have received and approved our 7th payment request, which represents 72% of the contract amount. The tank pre-stressing has been completed. Upcoming work will be continuing the 12-inch and the 24-inch piping out the front, flashing of the walls, removing the shoring from inside of the tank, cleaning inside of the tank, and beginning backfilling around the tank. Contractor indicates the tank is on schedule. Again, I wanted to remind the public that just because they see the tank may be constructed, there is still a bunch of work to be done up there, both by the contractor and by the Frankfurt Plant Board. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any question for David? Okay.
Okay, I'll jump back in here.
Okay.
So, of course, we awarded the project in April, and we have our first request for change order. Before we awarded the project, geotechnical studies around the reservoir were performed to try and get a better understanding of what conditions could be encountered during the demolition and excavation phase. However, those studies couldn't be performed directly under the reservoir due to it remaining in service. Therefore, it was understood that we would encounter some unforeseen conditions once the reservoir was demolished. So knowing that we would come across that, in order to prepare for that, unit pricing to remove rock and unsuitable materials was included in the original bid documents to establish a cost per cubic yard to remove those materials. So in our case, Smith Contractors had to excavate probably about maybe 0.92, so almost a foot more material than was assumed from the geotechnical study, which resulted in a need of an additional 1,018 cubic yards of crushed stone backfill to establish the reservoir subgrade. And during the course of this, it was also determined that the unit price that Smith had submitted only consisted of rock excavation and didn't include the actual crushed stone backfill as well. So they had a price for removal of $10 per cubic yard. So once that was determined, Strand Associates and Smith negotiated a unit price of $60 per cubic yard for crushed stone backfill, which after multiple discussions and review and speaking with Strand is very reasonable. The second bidder was $120 per cubic yard. So we feel like the $10 for excavation and $60 for the stone, $70 was very reasonable. If you compare it like to transportation, I think they're in the $90 to $100 per cubic yard for that same work. So that with that includes an add of $61,080. And then in addition, we have $1,000 deduction. Once it was CROM, we're going to have a couple of ladders across to reach the roof of the tank. And where we're going to bring back so much backfill, their ladders are only going to be about 6 feet tall. So it doesn't require a fall restraint. So that resulted in a $1,000 deduction. So total change order request will be for $60,080. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. So.
And we're still within the original budget for the reservoir of 7.45 million, right?
Yes, I know David's going to talk a little bit about budget during his agenda item, but yes, we're still in that so far. But like I said, he's got a little bit more discussion with the additional work we'll be doing, so he'll go over that a little bit more.
Okay, any questions for Sharmista? Okay, seeing none, does anybody? I need a motion to approve the change order.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Contract amendments approved. Item 7.2, consider retaining Blue and Company LLC to conduct the 21-22 financial audit for $33,650. This would be the second year for Blue to perform this work after it was competitively bid a year ago. Mr. Denton.
Yes, sir. That's you've got it covered. This will be year 2 with Blue and Company. In the proposal that they sent to us, it did say there would be approximately 2% fee increase year over year, and the $33,650 is in line with that proposal. And we're just asking for this to be approved to go ahead and get this on the schedule for Blue and Company for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022.
Any discussions of David regarding this audit contract? I think you said, David, from everything we saw in that you were pleased with working with them. They seem to be thorough and so forth, and work well with staff.
Absolutely. It was a good first year, and it usually just gets smoother from there. So we look forward to working with them again if the board would like to go that direction.
Okay. If there's no further questions, do we have a motion to approve the contract?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Contracts approved. Next item, approval of the FPB County Interlocal Agreement. Mr. Zing.
Yes, Chairman, board member. Actually, as you know, the last couple weeks, we've been partnered with the county to have a plan to build up a fiber network to the county to serve every customer in our county. The total $16 million project, the proposal is really county put in 3, we put 5 together to apply $8 million from the state to build up for the whole county. So this is a part of the process. We are very happy to see the partnership with county, the judge, magistrate staff work passionately together with us. So by the way, as you know, you approved it, the plan board already have 11 applications in front of the state. And I'm so glad that we are move ahead of the curve. So the total, there's a 62 project application. That's 11 of us come from us. So I just want you to know that many our staff done a lot of good work beforeward, because they have to do all the engineer work planning before we can submit application, before we can have a confidence, say, what's the project cost, what we can do, what's the system design which really can serve those customers, right? So overall, I just want you to know that the county already approved this agreement. We submit in front of you to ask you to approve that as a part of the process. But if you have any question, definitely Hans can help me. Adam can help me on detail too. If any question, I can answer.
Okay. Any questions for Gary or Adam or Hans or Ben? This is basically the same agreement we've talked about several times. All the terms and conditions are the same. And I guess at this point, we're just waiting to hear whether we get the grants, right?
Yes, if we could, then in that time, Hans can correct me, for each individual project,
Right.
in order to get the funding from state, we gotta have a matching fund available. So in that time, we probably gonna bring to you individually for each project, ask you and the county proof again.
Right.
I assume that will be.
Okay.
But Hans can correct me, or Adam Band. Yes.
Oh, so that's correct. That's a correct statement. The interlocal serves as just sort of the overall framework for the project, and then as specific areas are determined to be built out, we'll do a specific agreement that kind of outlines the boundaries, the proposed timeframes, and so on and so forth. And so we'll get this. The board will approve this, and then Rick Sparks and I will sign off, and then we'll file it with the AG. And Mr. Keybine's seen that probably more times than he can recall. So we'll get it.
And just for the record, the interlocal is in state law, and it simply allows counties, cities and counties, cities, departments, whatever, to work, government entities to work together in a cooperative way and define the terms and conditions of them working with each other.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Absolutely.
If there aren't any further questions, do we have a motion?
So move.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Interlocal agreements approved. Item 7.4, consider award of bid invitation number 1736 for on-call electrician service to Hills Electric. And this is basically to make fix any minor issues or wherever they come about as a result of installing the AMI, and to make sure that homeowners aren't inconvenienced or out any cost for doing that. Travis, you want to take it?
Yes, sir. Be happy to. I think you summed it up very well. As we're changing out AMI meters, occasionally we'll encounter customer-related issues. They'll have, an old meter base, bad wiring, loose jaws, those types of things. So we've taken it upon ourselves to help the customers out with those issues and provide the electrician services to make those repairs, just to make sure the AMI changeouts keep going well. Again, we bid these services out, reviewed the responses, and are recommending award to Hills Electric. This will be part of the AMI budget, which is $3.75 million this year. Hills has done this type of work for us recently on other customer related issues, and they've done a great job. We've been very happy with them. So far,
you took bids on this, right?
We did. This was publicly bid. That's correct. Yes, sir. So far, we're encountering these types of issues on about 2% of the installs. So maybe 300 or 400 when it's all said and done, if that rate stays true to the end of the project. So, but again, we've used them a little bit already. Been very happy with them. Had a great response time and done good work. So, happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Schneider.
Steve, go ahead.
Steve?
My question is, did we anticipate having to do this at the beginning of this process?
We expected
something that we expected to have to do.
Yeah, it's not entirely unexpected. The reason we're kind of bringing it to the board now is we use this early phase to get a feel for how many there were going to be. That was the big unknown. We didn't know if it would be kind of 2% like we're seeing, or just one or two. So we feel like we got a good baseline to go off of. But yeah, these types of issues were expected.
And the only reason I'm asking that question is, for my second question is, how does this impact the budget for AMI?
I don't think it'll have a significant impact. Like I said, with the 2% rate, the fees will pay out to electricians. If that stays true, for the labor portion, we're looking at, maybe 30,000-ish. I think we're kind of in that neighborhood. So again, not going to make any substantial impact on the budget. I certainly still think we'll be well under the budget amount at the end of the year.
What would be the cost of a typical repair, Travis, that they might have to come out and fix?
Yeah, it may be, they quoted 55 an hour. So most of them, a typical install would be in the 1 to 2 hour range. Some of the materials we can provide, we've already got on hand. So if it's a bad set of meter jaws, we can provide that. There's no additional cost there. It's already material we have. So somewhere in that range. Occasionally we'll find one that's really in bad shape, and the repair cost may creep up from there all the way to kind of in that, say, $2,500 range. That could happen, but those are less frequent.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm assuming by bidding this out, we are getting a better rate than we were just paying it on just per service call.
I think so, yes. Based on what we saw before, I think this is a good rate. And I think the pricing was structured a little bit different before. We were paying kind of a flat fee for the type of repair they were making. So I think this is going to be, I think it'll be better to do it this way. The per hour competitively bid for that rate, I think it will be an improvement, yes.
I think from what I understood, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, we were using several different companies, and then we did this bid, which also gave us the ability to put a little tighter requirement on response time. By concentrating, we were able to be a little more, I don't want to say demanding, but we were able to kind of specify that we don't want homeowners out a day or two because of AMI.
Yeah, absolutely. That would not be good. We're asking for 2 hours or less is the ask. We haven't had that at all so far. They've been better than that anytime. Yeah.
Hey, John?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Travis, we talked a little earlier about this. This particular work is work that cannot be done by our lineman, correct? It has to be done by a licensed electrician.
That is correct. This work needs to be done by a licensed electrician, not a utility lineman. That's correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Travis? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to approve bid invitation number 1736 to Hill Electric?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Contracts awarded. Item 7.5. Consider award of bid invitation number 1741 for one DC fast charging station to Westco in the amount of $43,356. And this was actually approved in our budget this year. And we had talked with the mayor, and we had indicated to the city that he was very interested in getting one of these fast charging, and that we would basically discuss with the city and let them determine where they thought the most the most utilization would be for both tourism and so forth. So Travis, you want to take it?
Sure, be happy to. Again, we prepared an invitation, number 1741 for one fast charging station. We received 2 responses. After reviewing the bids, we recommend award to Westco in the amount of $43,356. I think it's important to point out here, this initial purchase will include 1 year of the warranty and cloud services. Based on what they've quoted so far, the annual expense for that is going to be a little over $5,000, around $5,270. Again, that's a year-over-year warranty and cloud services fee. In addition to that, there'll be substantial utility extension costs to get the charger installed. These are big stations, so there'll have to be a new pad mount transformer, primary line extension, secondary extension. So there will be a lot of work for the plant board to take on beyond just the equipment purchase to make the install complete. And again, as you mentioned earlier, we've been working with the city staff quite a bit to finalize the location. We've kind of let them lead the charge on that, tell us where they think it best fits. I think we're close on finalizing that. We be somewhere downtown, kind of close to the old rail depot.
Jason?
Sure.
Yeah, could you just tell me a little bit more about like how fast the fast charger can charge a car? Are there multiple cars that can be hooked up to this type of station that's being proposed? Are there any protocols around vandalism or to protect it? Are there any dangers associated with it?
Sure. As far as charging time, so the first 3 stations we put in were what you would call level 2. They can be to get a full charge 8 to 10 hours and well on up from there. That's kind of a much slower charging solution, somewhere where you're going to hook up and stay hooked up for all day. These DC chargers, to answer one of your questions, this is not a 2-car solution. This is 1 car at a time. The other ones are 2 hookups. So this is just one car per station. These are in the range of 60 kW equipment. So if you're sitting there an hour, it's going to be in the neighborhood of 60 kWh. There's a lot of, it depends on charging times. It depends on the make and model of your vehicle, of course, and how depleted you are and the life of your battery. But the intention here is to be much quicker. This is more of a 20-minute to an hour type of fill up, fast top off, versus a level 2 where you're going to be hooked up and sitting for hours. This is the type of equipment, if you're traveling along like an interstate corridor and there's a charging station kind of just off the interstate where you can stop and top off, if you will. That's where you see a lot of these types of equipment, and you do see them downtowns and kind of centralized city center areas.
So this will be hooked into some type of app system where people will be able to pull up and use this to come downtown to find the station, or other signage associated with it?
It is. It'll be on the ChargePoint app. I think you can find them on Google Maps too if you're looking around in there. People will specifically, if you need something quick, that it will point them directly kind of to this one in particular versus the other level 2s that we have out there, which are great if you're gonna park and be there a while. They work just fine. But again, this one is if you're looking for something that's going to be really fast, this is what you need. Based on all the information I can find, the only other publicly listed DC stations I'm aware of are in Louisville and Lexington. So I think having one here in Frankfort will be a nice, nice addition. Kind of put us ahead of the curve a little bit, if you will.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great project. Just 2 other quick questions. Is there like with the apps and stuff, does it show like reservations so that someone comes downtown, they want to plug in and someone's already plugged in? And like, how's that work? And then parking, will the parking space have certain coloring or something so other people aren't parking there by accident? Like, what's the protocols right now with that?
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the parking, what we've been doing, we've painted the spaces. We've got signs we can put up that say EV charging only. We have stressed to the city staff that we've worked with on this project. It's pretty important. We try and stay on top of that. We don't want people blocking this one because obviously both the plant board, if we proceed, and the city are investing a lot in valuable parking and equipment here. So we need to make sure we're making the best use of it. And to your first question, yes, you can reserve time on it. I have seen some of these DC stations charge a parking fee. So if you come and you hook up and you decide, well, I'm going to stay hooked up all day, whether I need it or not, that's something we can pursue. You're paying an hourly or minute fee to make use of that space. So that's an option on the table too.
Let me ask this, Travis. I'm sorry, to follow up on Jason's question. Would it be better to put in one that could charge 2 at one time? And what would be the price? I mean, I assume installation wise, in terms of the prep work, would be about the same. How much more would one that could charge 2 cars at one time as opposed to 1? What would that 43,000 change to? Do you have any feel?
From what I understand with these stations, they only offer a single port in the DC fast because it's so much power draw. It would basically be another station.
Okay.
Almost basically 2x on the equipment. Maybe you get some savings on the multiple pricing, but from what I understand, it would be a complete new station because the power draw on one is so strong that you would have to add a complete new one. As
And the way
opposed,
these have worked is the city will be paying the utility costs, right?
we have posed that question to them. We have the option to charge drivers and assign a fee for usage. We have approached the city about that. That has been the agreement on the first three, is they're paying the energy usage. We have posed the question to them if they would like to continue that program. So I don't know that we have an update yet.
John,
I mean, that was I'm sorry, Steve.
no, go on. I'm sorry. I'll wait till you finish.
I was just gonna say, and it was very informal discussions during the budget process, but it was kind of my general understanding that we would buy the charger and install it, and then we would kind of follow the same model as the first three. And like I said, we don't have any letter or formal agreement on it, but that was kind of the general discussion with the city, is it would be the kind of same reimbursement model as the first three.
Okay, I will follow up on that again.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have asked them in writing about that agreement, so
yeah,
we'll try and work
Steve?
that out.
Yeah, actually, my questions were based on that, John. But my initial questions was, how long does it take for us if we do recoup any of our investment? Because it sounds like this one's going to cost some money beyond just the cost of the unit. And I'm asking that question because I don't want to set a precedent here that I know there will be another one and another one in the future. And I don't want to come to where we are, in a sense, subsidizing electric, particularly if we're not going to get paid for it, but subsidize. I think the city gives us free. I mean, the ones that are now are free to people. And I would assume if they carry forward for this one, it probably will be free too. And I don't want to get into the subsidization of electric energy to people. So my last point is, based on your question, John, I'm not prepared to do this until we know that the city is going to pay for the electricity, because this sounds like substantially more energy usage than what's out there right now.
Travis, what's been the model? Like I've seen on some television shows, some various things. I know like the National Park Service and different people have installed these, or even you said there's the ones in Louisville and Lexington. Did KU and LG&E put those in, or were those private, or who put those in Louisville and Lexington?
From what I can tell, they're private, and it looks like they're at, believe it or not, Harley Davidson dealerships. I think Harley Davidson had that electric motorcycle that came out, and I guess there's some kind of agreement to put in the charging stations. They are not free. There's a cost for the energy and a cost for, at least on one of them that I looked at, there's a cost per hour just to be parked there. They're not free to the drivers. The level 2 ones are sometimes a mixed bag. Some of them are free. Some of them are a few dollars to use. But I don't know of any of the DC that are currently free. And again, that option would be available to us if we want to apply a fee to hook up to this station. The technology is all there to make that happen. They'll accept credit cards.
But does the city administer these? The ones we have out there now, the city is the administrator of those stations.
We have control over the accounts. The reason we did it that way, the city originally told us that if at any time they so choose to stop paying for them, they would indeed do that. So we have the ability to turn that function on and off for any of the 3 that are already installed, and we'll have that ability on this new one as well.
Well, but again, right now, the trend is that they do the administration and determine costs, if any, or scheduling, if any. That comes through them.
Could I clarify something a little bit here? I think the cost of the energy right now is based on our general rate, and that's what we charge the city for the energy that comes out of these. And then they elect not to pass it on to the customers right now. But we're being paid for that. As far as, if you remember I think it'll be February or so, some of the things that Burns McDonald is doing for us on some of those individual rates and things they're looking at, the RECs and different things. One of those items they're coming out with is based on cost of service, what would be a proper EV rate for vehicles. Right now, again, we're using our general service rate. We will have a specific EV rate that we will charge the city. And if the city says we no longer want to do it for free, then that would be what we would charge
Yeah.
folks as they come by on their credit card.
Yeah, but again, right now, the city is in charge of whatever, if any, charge to the public.
Yes, if they no longer
Okay, so
want
that's
to
all
do
good.
that, then yeah, we can't give it away for free according to Hance's legal review. So if the city said no, they did not want to do it for free, then it would revert to that electric rate that we charge, the general electric rate. As far as recouping our charges for this and the equipment, again, we haven't done the cost of service study on this, so I don't believe we're probably recouping that rate currently. What we will get in a couple of months will be a rate that's more in line with recouping your cost of service for these particular items. And then at some point, I would think you have to think as these chargers become more and more widespread, the subsidy, the free part of it will probably go away. And at that point, most everyone would, there would be a charge, but currently the city is agreeing to go along with it.
Okay, what is the board's pleasure to approve this and award the contract, or to ask Vint and Gary and Travis to get with the city and finalize the reimbursement arrangements and then bring it back in January? What's your all's pleasure?
I would like to get with the city to see what they plan to do with this. I mean, if it has to become ours, then we can come back and do that. I'm not opposed to the station per se. I
Right.
just don't want to be caught financially with all the liability that we thought was going to go somewhere else.
Okay.
Right now.
Well, you all want to?
Could I remind the board, if the city, the city in all of our conversations, it's not written in stone, but in all of our conversations, they understand the same process. If
Right.
the city said, we don't want to continue this, then there would, unless the board made a different decision, then we could put this in and charge for it, just like we would if the city wasn't doing this. So we're not stuck in a situation where we can't recover a rate for electric. We could, if the city doesn't want to do it for free, the charge would just pass to customers rather than the city right now.
And we just put some type of, and this device is capable, has the software and the capability of someone being able to insert a credit card and pay for it.
Yes, that's how you do it. You pay for it on credit card, and we adjust what the rate is. The rate could change, pretty often. We could change it by all kinds of things. So again, if the city doesn't want to participate, then it just has a rate, basically, is the only thing that would change, would be my opinion.
Well,
Okay.
I'd be okay with that, but I'd like to have some input on the location.
But we had kind of,
If we did it ourselves.
okay.
If we did
So,
it ourselves.
Chair,
I'm sorry, Catherine?
I have a couple questions. This cloud plan subscription and the prepaid Assure for CPE 250 or whatever, those, it amounts to about 5,200 in recurring annual charges. First of all, is that do we have a similar annual charge on the other stations?
It's structured similarly, but it's much less. And I think the primary reason would be it's much less expensive equipment. I think the bulk of that is much pricier equipment here, but it's structured the same. There is an Assure and a cloud plan with the other stations.
Okay. And we've been paying that every year.
We do pay that, yes.
Okay. So with the current stations, we paid for the initial, the equipment and installation, basically the infrastructure and the annual charges. And the city's just reimbursing us the cost of the energy, and right now that rate does not include any sort of amount to cover cost of operation, correct?
No, it would be a kind of a standard utility rate. It's just they've got another meter on the equipment specifically.
Okay, and what you said on the Burns McDonald study is, we can come up with, or they can come up with some proposals for EV rate that might get us a little bit of, in essence, a reimbursement for some of the costs.
Correct.
correct?
Yeah, the annual fee, those kind of things are not something that was taken into account in the general charge. That's just kind of covering other things. That's why we asked for this specific cost of service created for this one rate, so that we will establish a rate that will recover these annual fees, equipment cost to install, et cetera, the expected life of the item, and those kind of things will be involved in the rate. And that will, there's two different rates that likely you would have. You could have a rate that is on the kilowatt hour charge. You can also have a connect rate. You know, if someone connects and they're only there for a short amount of time, you wouldn't collect much money. Maybe you need to have a minimum charge just to connect. Maybe you need to have a penalty charge if you, especially on the DC fast charger, if you've been there for 2 hours, that's designed to be a quick top off. You need to move on out of the way, and maybe there's a penalty if you stay there. It'll text you and tell you your car's full. Can you please move it? And so there's a lot of things like that that could be done to recover those costs. And that will be in that Burns McDonald. We'll have a much better idea of how to fairly and accurately just determine what those rates would be for these types of installs.
So obviously there's a lot of logistics. So I'm wondering if we play this out and we don't approve this, and you know, it seems like the city's not going to be able to say yay or nay till they know what we're proposing. And we don't know what we're proposing till the Burns McDonald study's finished, correct?
Well, we have the current rate that we charge. Yeah, it could go up. I would think the rate may be a little higher, but we will see. I think the other thing to remember longer term, with all the money that's proposed to put into EV charging stations in the country, the amount of money, I mean, this money gives you this network that does all the things that Mr. DeLam was asking, does it do? That's really the key to making this usable. I believe when we start to put a lot of federal money in and we start to see these charging stations go everywhere, there's probably going to be some type of national network and they will all be on it. And I would expect this particular model with ChargePoint will have to change in the future, but that could be 5, 6, 7 years, you know, away. So yeah, the city could get a little bit different bill. I mean, you know, I don't think realistically it's going to be some huge charge difference, but it could be different.
Let me ask this, Travis, 2 questions. One, these bids are usually good for what, 60 days, aren't they?
Correct. Yeah, standard bid terms here on this one.
And if the board approved today, ordering the equipment with the caveat that final deployment would be contingent on reaching an agreement with the city in terms of reimbursement. If we ordered today, when would it be before we'd get the charging station in, delivered?
Yeah, they were quoting kind of in the 2 to 3 month lead time range. I can pull exactly from the tab sheet exactly what they quoted here.
So realistically, we wouldn't get the equipment before, and will they just deliver it to us? Does DC fast charging just deliver it, or do they deliver it and install?
We would have to install, we would have to set a transformer, make up a concrete pad.
So they'll deliver it to us and we do the work there. They're not going to bring it and do the work, correct?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
What would you all think about a motion to award the bid invitation with the contingency that final deployment is subject to coming back to the board in terms of an arrangement with the city on reimbursement and final location? Then we have it ordered. We want best speed. We wouldn't get it till February, probably not till March. And that gives us 60 to 90 days to work out something with the city in terms of where it might go, the property, what all has to be done, and so forth.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I could throw in one more wrinkle to this.
Sure.
One of the agenda items is considering hiring assistance from a grant writer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Should we be thinking that this might be a possible project that money could be out there and get through a grant? And if so, if we go on and sign this, or award this bid, would that sort of preclude that?
I think I'd ask a couple questions about it. And I think when the response, Travis, one of the things we very well may want to apply for is the EV charging. But by the time they write the rules and we apply, no, it would probably be a number of months before we'd even know anything. And then the question is, would we want, along with the city, partnership to even buy more of these? And then what kind of reimbursement will be available? So certainly that's something we could do, is we could basically defer this and wait, see what federal opportunities, but we probably wouldn't be installing something probably till best speed, summer, fall at best speed. By the time the federal rules come out, we apply and get some reward, if that fast. Is that correct, Travis?
Yeah, my understanding, there is EV infrastructure money that's coming with the big grant packages, quite a bit of it actually, but they, to my knowledge, have not announced any dates. So it's a bit of an unknown. I would have to imagine, like you were saying, it would, getting it done this budget year kind of would feel like a long shot at that point. But yes, I think the money would be out there.
Sure. What's the board's pleasure? How do y'all want to proceed?
I just want to throw in real quick. I think we've all got some good considerations here. Obviously, the location of the old rail depot makes me think that this is somewhat of a tourism play here. And my guess is a tourism play around the bourbon industry, some of these higher, wealthier people with nicer cars who want to do a fest.
I think Jason's froze.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's
Trace off the trail and be able to come downtown and check out Frankfurt going down May for this tourist season. I don't want to put thoughts into the.
Can you start over,
Jason? This conversation, but it does seem like.
Can you start over?
Hey,
can you start over because you froze?
Yep. Hey guys, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just saying that it seems like from the city's point of view, if they're picking the old rail depot, it's a tourism play to try to bring in some people from the Bourbon Trail. And that's usually April and May is when that kind of kicks off. So if we're wanting to sort of be a good partner with the city on this, trying to make sure that it's installed around that time, especially as a kind of one-off showpiece that they're doing a little bit here. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in as a consideration with our thinking. Maybe this first one, we try to fit that time frame, and then future ones, we try to align with the grant. And hopefully there's grants that would be retroactively be able to pay something within a certain period of time and maybe even go back to fund this. My only other question, and I'm just catching up with this conversation, is Vint and Travis, have you guys done some studies on how the other stations been used and occupied and the revenue being generated from those? I'm just being kind of curious to see, since they've been installed, has there been an uptick in them? Obviously around COVID, it's not a traditional time period of travel and tourism. But I was just wondering if you had some numbers on that, maybe at the future meeting we could look at. If we're going with John's idea of kind of an interim evaluation, but a pre-approval now.
We do have all those numbers. The equipment will tell us exactly how many people have hooked up, how long were they hooked up, how much energy did they use. So there's all that data available to us. Like you mentioned, COVID kind of threw everything for a loop. We were installing some of them kind of early as things were getting locked down. So a bit of unknown. I think EV charging in general, there's always going to be a little bit of unknown because it depends on which analysis you believe on how many cars are going to be EVs in the next 10 years. That's obviously a big what if. So, but yes, to answer your original question, we have all that data.
Well, I'm fully supportive of EV charging stations and getting that infrastructure into our community and starting to build that in. But I think everybody's making some really good points on how to think about this, especially long-term, Steve, like you were saying. I agree with you.
I can agree with what you're saying. I guess my only question, and I don't mind buying it now, is the question on thinking about if the city doesn't want to maintain the current relationship as it relates to them paying us for the service, then we need to think about how we set the charging rates and those kinds of things, the policies around it. So if we do it or they do it, I'm in agreement that we can do it. Just my question is, make sure we're clear on the responsibilities you know, if the city's with us in it or if the city is not with us in it.
We've got three options. It sounds like we can approve with that contingency to finalize details with the city and go on and get it ordered. We can pass over till January where we can get some more information with the city, or we can wait till to see the federal grant applications and see if we could order more than one and what the reimbursement would be at that point. And we could still have the discussion with the city if the federal grant's going to be just for equipment, you know, who's going to pay the energy costs. So does anybody want to make a motion, or there may be a fourth motion?
Could I ask one question before we?
No, you have to make a motion. Ben, you have to make a motion, buddy.
I'll make a motion to ask a question, clarification. You know, we're talking about an agreement with the city. I think what they did before was they agreed to like a year they were going to do it and just kind of continue on, which they have continued on. We're past that year. If we talk to the city or try to get an agreement, is a year okay? I mean, is that, you know, if the board, I mean, I don't know that we'll get more than that because they're not going to go into their next budget year. Probably that was at least their opinion before. If you want us to engage with them and get some type of something in writing, does the board want a year minimum or any feelings on that?
I would think, I mean, like you said, they can't commit to more than 1 year at a time contractually. It could be one of the things that it automatically renews every year unless either party gives notice. Wouldn't that work, Hans? Hans?
Sorry, it was kind of cut out there a little bit.
I was thinking, I mean, wouldn't the typical agreement be that it's a 1 year agreement that automatically renews unless either party gives notice?
You could do it could be any type, could be that structure, could be whatever's, you know, amenable to both the city commission and the board.
Yeah.
So we could, you know, could do a variety of things.
Okay, how do y'all want to proceed?
Hold on, John, before we do that, I just got one last question for Travis.
Sure.
Sorry. Just to kind of get to Steve's point, if you needed to move one of these, if over a couple of years the trending showed that the location wasn't the best and maybe there was a better location, is that even possible? Since obviously the investment is in the equipment, there's infrastructure for sure, but is there an ability to move these or shift it around the community if it came to that?
Yeah, I think you highlighted the main point there. There may be some infrastructure you strand if you move, but other than that, the equipment itself, it can be done. I mean, it's not ideal. Obviously, there's always cost to send people and unhook wires and load up equipment, but it can be done. It doesn't. Okay. Nothing that I could think of would make it.
So that gives us a little more safety cushion there as well to be able to shift it around down the road. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you, Travis. Good work.
Okay.
Ms.
Anybody
Cuban.
want to make a motion?
I think Gary wanted to say something.
Ms. Cuban,
Yes,
only thing I like to mention is this current network called ChargePoint is the single largest network for the charging station in US today. And the information, the real-time information is so critically important. And also their second piece I want to say that is the best interest to all electric utility, include us, to promote electrical vehicle. The reason I give you example is my family had a 2 EV in our home. We can see our electrical bill go up 60% very easily. So it's our best interest promote that. It's a clean, it's a good environment,
yes,
but it's a huge benefit to us, the bottom line. That's the only things I would like to mention.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
John, I haven't said anything yet, and I don't know if this is in the form of a motion or not. I appreciate what Steve was saying. I also appreciate what Jason was saying. I really think this is something the city has kind of come and asked us to do. We've agreed to do it, and this is out here for us. It's ready to go. I don't even think we need the contingency. I mean, we'll figure out what the city's going to do. if the city decides they're not going to pay for the energy cost, then when Burns McDonald comes back in February, we'll come up with a rate for it, and we'll take care of it that way. I think this is laying in front of us now. I think it's ready for us to do it. This will be the first of its kind, certainly in Frankfurt. I think Travis is saying maybe the first of its kind anywhere in the state besides Louisville and Lexington. I think that's another feather in our cap. We've budgeted the money to do it. I think we go ahead and do it, and then, and I feel confident that the city is going to pay for the energy for at least the first year or so. I mean, I think we've kind of got that handshake agreement. We'll figure out what happens there, but I would make a motion to go ahead and approve it, and then go ahead and approve this bid invitation number 17441, and then at the next meeting, ask staff to come back to us and tell us where they are with the city in terms of whatever agreement they have for the city to pay for the ongoing costs.
Okay. We have John's motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Contracts awarded. Number 7.6. Consider awarding the ammonia sulfuric acid upgrade project bid number 1740 to Herrick in the amount of $685,000. Julie, and there was some huge price differences there, weren't there?
Yes, we got some pretty good numbers, I think. So following the engineering design by HDR engineers and divisional water approval, Frankfurt Plant Board did prepare this bid number 1740 for the construction phase of the ammonia and sulfuric acid upgrade project at the water treatment plant. The bid was advertised and was sent to 5 potential bidders in November, and we opened those bids this past Monday, December 13th. This project will replace the anhydrous or gas ammonia feed system at the plant that we use in the disinfection process with a much safer liquid process, and provide chemical feed redundancy for the sulfuric acid system, which is used to adjust pH. We received 3 bids, 3 responses to the bid. EZ Construction at $987,235, Herrick Company at $685,000, and Lockett's Contracting at $1,040,000. So after bid review and HDR and upon their recommendation, Frankfurt Plant Board Water Treatment staff recommend awarding the bid to Herrick Company at the cost of $685,000. Herrick has in the past provided successful work during construction projects here at the water treatment plant. The construction phase is in this year's capital budget on page 19. At a cost currently at $1,375,000. Be happy to answer any questions.
Was there any reason that, I mean, obviously we've used Herrick and you feel comfortable they're capable of doing the work. Yes. Was there any reason the other two were $300,000 and $400,000 higher, you think, or?
No, I don't. Sharmista, she has been reviewing the bids. Have you seen anything that would have pointed out any differences?
No, we all looked through it and we had HDR, Brent Tippy with HDR as our engineer for this job. And he actually even called Herrick directly just to talk to them even he was a little surprised he was so much lower, but his response was he stands by his number, and it's it's a simple job. I mean, it's a big job. It's a big deal for us with water treatment, but for them, they see it as a small, easy job for them, honestly. So yeah, we felt we had the same thoughts you did looking at the variance in the numbers.
Well, keep in mind too that there will be other costs incurred at the water treatment plant in this project too. We have to go to a temporary ammonia feed system, so the cost for that temporary feed system will be coming out of the project. So that was included in the 1.3 million, was some of the things that we're going to have to do to get prepared for this.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just to follow up on what Julie just said, about what percentage of the total construction project would this part of the project represent?
Oh, now this is where I need Brandon. He can do the math in his head.
I mean, just approximately, because it's about, it's less than half of the budget.
Less than half of the budget.
Do you think it's more than half of the total construction costs we're gonna incur though?
Is that including what we're gonna do out here at the water treatment plant? Are you looking?
Yeah, I'm talking about the whole budget we had for the water treatment upgrade.
I can't give you a percentage, but I do believe we will come in well under budget.
Awesome. And can you talk a little bit, just educate us all a little bit on the how this changing this type of system will be an improvement in safety as far as the ammonia?
Okay, right now we have a tank of gas ammonia out here, and gas ammonia is can be considered a hazardous chemical. It is one that we do not want to see a release of. So by going to a liquid process, we are eliminating any danger to our employees or to the public. Most water systems that do use chloramines as a disinfection process are moving away from gas ammonia. So we are, this is the trend. It is much safer, much more reliable, easier to deal with. So.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of Julie? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Contracts awarded.
Thank you.
Next item, 7.7. Consider approval of change order number 1 on PCCP line work project with Rangeline Pipeline Services for $153,078. Mr. Billings.
Yes, sir. In October, the board received 2 bids for a single line stop and fittings for the tie-in to the existing concrete pipe in front of the reservoir. Rangeline Pipeline Services was the low bid at $121,754. Second highest bidder was Thompson Pipe Group in the amount of $211,950. So Rangeline left about $90,000 on the table. We got a good bid from them. Like I said earlier, we awarded the work to Rangeline Pipeline Services. As staff began to develop the construction details, it became evident that a temporary bypass, which would continue to provide flows around and tie into around the tie-in area and into the reservoir, would be advisable in order to minimize the construction risk to the greatest extent possible. As a matter of course, Rangeline was requested to provide a scope of work and pricing. At this point, I'd like to share my screen and explain kind of what I'm talking about. This is the pieces that are going to be cut in. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
These are the pieces that are going to be cut in to the 36-inch concrete line out front in this area right here. The original plan was to have a single line stop in this area. And together with that line stop and an existing valve up here, we're going to be taking this line out of service to do this cut-in work. It was originally thought that could be done in a day. I think that was optimistic. So the idea behind a bypass, this is a different screen, same area, is instead of just the single line stop here that I mentioned earlier, it would be the one that was planned here and an additional line stop up here, and then a temporary 24-inch high-density polyethylene pipe around the work-in area that would allow water to come from the water treatment plant around the scheduled work-in and continue to go in and out of the reservoir during the time that this was being done. So that minimizes construction risk to the greatest extent that we know that's available. Let's see. Like I said, change order number 1 is providing a secondary line stop and a 24-inch bypass. The change order would increase the contract amount by $153,078, but not change the substantial completion date. The new contract amount would be $274,832. Funds to cover the additional expense are included in the FY22 budget. $91,000 we transferred to this project from the PCCP fittings line 650. That project's not expected to occur this year. And with the remaining $62,000 transferred from the water line replacement line item, line 655. We don't expect any change orders on top of this at this time. As a matter of course, staff recommends the board approve change order number 1 with Rangeline Pipeline Services.
Okay. Any questions of David?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Oh.
Catherine?
Oh, Jason, go ahead.
No,
Yes.
you go ahead.
Okay. This is obviously standing out because it's more than double now the price. And I mean, just from my layman's view, it looks like it's probably double because it's a lot of piping compared to what, and it's a little bit of a kick in the butt. If it originally the project was maybe that changeover was only going to take a day, and now we're more than doubling to basically make sure it's the operation stays safe, because it looks like it's going to take longer than a day. So I kind of don't doubt that. I guess we have to do it. I'm sure you all have explored any other options, and but it's a significant change.
It is a significant change. It's the safest way that we know how to do it. This is critical work. We did check with Hans on the amount, and it's a continuation of well, I'll let Hans explain, but it's my understanding it's a continuation of the scope of work that was originally planned. Is that a fair recollection, Hans?
Yes, sir. That's a good that's a good statement. There's a Attorney General opinion, a 1962 AG opinion that talks about sort of change, when is a change order appropriate, and it relates more to the nature of the work as opposed to the amount of the change. So if you're, and of course it's kind of a fact sensitive question, but here I think, talking with David, this is all kind of integrally related to the job. You have to have the bypass to get the job done safely. So I think it's fair enough to do a change order in this instance. It's kind of, it relates all to the same, the kind of the same nucleus of operative fact, if you will, that sort of phrase. It's all the same. It's not a completely different type of a project we're dealing with.
And are we all comfortable having looked at the specifics of this change order? Because we just have the overall amount, but I'm assuming that amount is based on, for things like per feet of piping. Was that comparable to the original contract?
There was no piping included in the original contract. This is for approximately the rental for about 150, 250 feet of pipe.
Is that piping just going to lay on top of the ground?
That is correct.
Okay, so it's literally just rental. Because in my head, I thought, well, maybe if we have that, should something happen in the future, we can have use of that bypass, that we're not even going to, it's not a permanent structure.
It is not a permanent structure. Once we are done with our work, they will come in and remove the line stops and remove the bypass line.
As I understand it, David, I'm sorry, Catherine.
My last thing was just whether we think it's a competitive price if we were to actually go and bid this part of the project out.
Well, we already have one contractor. We already have Rangeline, and we talked about that. And to take bids on it, then we'd have another contractor up there in the mix. Rangeline does this kind of work. They're actually subbing with the person that does the pipeline. They do that all the time. I think we got fair pricing in the beginning. When I talk with Rangeline, they think it's fair pricing.
Let me ask this, David, kind of following up on what Catherine was asking. Obviously, when the original design was, it was all laid out and cost estimates, the assumption was that we could make that cut in without this redundancy and without this additional line, bypass line. And as I understand it, we got into it, and then did we discover it, or the contractor discover that there was going to be more risk than maybe what we want to assume to go with? Because obviously we could still go with the other option, but the risk is something goes wrong and we lose all the water, right?
There's always risk associated with doing this type of work. This minimizes the risk to the great extent that we know of minimizing the risk. That's the best way I know how to answer that question.
Okay, but I think
Ms. Cuban,
what Catherine was getting at is, how did we discover it? Did we discover it, or the contractor or whatever, that the other option was going to be too risky?
We got really nervous about what could go wrong and the assumption this could be done in a day.
Okay.
Ms. Cuban is here.
Yes,
I
sir.
add a little more. I mean, I heard them present many times with us, me and Wen, everyone look into it. Nobody want to spend this additional 150,000. That's a lot of money to all of us. But there's a part of it is when we're dealing that 36-inch line. I think David mentioned that there are many parts made just for us. What our concern is during the pandemic period right now, if there's anything wrong, the line already been cut, they try to install it. If there are any parts doesn't work, then they have to go to make again because they are not a standard again. When we have water treatment plant continue working, but the water cannot feed in reservoir, it will not happen. It can create a whole systematic issue.
Right.
We really say stop water service. We don't think that's the option. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen. If anything can go wrong during that installation period, then we don't have any option anymore in that period of time.
Okay.
David, Van, correct me. I think you guys know far better than I do.
Yeah, I'd like to say that, hundreds of hours were spent trying to come up with a plan that would mitigate a large percentage of the risk here. I know it's $100,000, $150,000. That's a lot of money, but also keep in mind it's a $7 million project, and the ramifications of if it goes wrong, not being able to provide water is so great that sometimes some of these type of mitigation measures are warranted. If the board will remember, when we started this project, we spent about $150,000-$200,000 on a liner for the North Basin. And again, that was mitigation insurance policy in case when we took out one half of that reservoir, if we started to have significant leaks or it started to come apart, we wanted that insurance policy. Again, it had to do with the magnitude of what can happen if things go wrong. I think this is in one of those cases where if we were doing an ordinary line, would we try to necessarily do this? No, but you're talking about largely the entire water system for the whole city. So it is $150,000. It's a $150,000 insurance policy. To be honest with you, I hope we put all this in, everything goes well. We don't need additional parts. And we ended up not needing it. But if it goes the other way, and a part doesn't work and it has to be manufactured and we're waiting days and days to get that done, at that particular point, I think people would say, did you do everything possible to mitigate? And that's where we ran into, when David's looking at this and he's dug into it, we've come to the conclusion, we think it's an insurance policy, but it's an insurance policy on a possibility that we could mitigate for, a reasonable amount of money versus what would happen if we don't we don't take this step. You know, there are other measures we could take that would be 5, 6, 10, $15 million. Obviously, those don't make sense and those get rolled out. But I think we would be nervous of staff if we don't, you know, proceed forward with something like this. But obviously, you know, it's a board decision.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have no doubt that if our staff has analyzed this and think this is what's needed to mitigate risk, I have no doubt in that. What I'd like to hear is, aside from the contractor saying he thinks the price is fair, is that our staff says we think the price is fair. And if that's that, I'm fine.
Okay. Then David, based on the amount of work and what it's going to take, do you think that price is reasonable?
I really don't have anything to compare it to other than the other line stop was in the $50,000 price range. I do know that high density polyethylene pipe is very expensive right now. But it's more than just the pipe. It's a contractor coming in and install it, taking responsibility for it, making sure he's working with the other contractor. If we do have two different contractors up there and something goes wrong, then they're two different contractors are pointing their fingers at one another.
Yeah. And I noticed
they're pointing fingers at each other when we have no water.
Right.
That's one of the key things to remember is when you're in these emergency situations, if we have to actually, if this is something we're actually, you know, we get down in that situation and you have an additional contractor and they're saying, no, it's their fault or it's their fault. And at the same time, you got, you know, large portions of the city or more with very limited to no water. That's a huge, I don't know. In my experience, that's a huge deal. That's worth additional money as well.
And I noticed there was part of that bid was $7,000 for them to provide additional bonding too, right?
Correct.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure in terms of, do we want a motion? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Contracts awarded. Okay, item 7.8, consider approving bid number 1739 for contract labor for installation services to Custom Cable in the amount not to exceed $300,000. Adam, and this is part of what your normal plan was in terms of the installing the fiber. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. This is staff prepared bid 1739. We sent it out to 6 possible vendors. We had 2 response. One is actually Custom Cable, who is the contractor that is helping actually construct the network. We've worked with Custom Cable in the past. They've done installation contract labor before, done a good job. So, and this is part of the initial launch. We want to make sure that we have enough hands on deck to cover anything that we got going on. Also, we're down in staff in the installation department, and this actually gives us some time to get some new staff members on, get them trained up, and they can kind of fill the void during that process. The pricing looks okay. I mean, we haven't did any pricing for contract labor in a while, but it seems to be pretty fair. So I would ask that the board approve it. Hans looked at the bid when we sent it out, and everything looked good to him. So I've asked for the
And
board.
we've used Custom Cable.
Yes, sir. That's initially probably 10 or 12 years ago. Custom Cable was actually our first contractor that we used for installation years ago. And then we sent them away. And then, like I said, we decided to bring contract labor back for help, and they award, actually we applied for installation help. So,
okay. Any questions of Adam? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Contracts approved.
Thank you.
7.8, consider approving NBC Universal Agreement. Harvey, it wouldn't be a meeting without you, buddy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Cable Advisory Committee and staff recommend the board approve the NCTC renewal for the NBC Universal Agreement. It has a term from November 6th, 2021 through October 29th of 2025. The networks covered include USA, NBC Sports, Sci-Fi, Oxygen, Bravo, E, CNBC, MSNBC, and Golf Channel on Classic Cable, Universal Kids and Olympic Channel on Preferred Cable, and also Olympics programming. 9 of the top 52 most viewed networks on FPB Cable are included in this agreement. The license fee increases are just over 2% in year 1 and around 5% in years after that. Those increases are lower than what was budgeted. No additional carriage or migration requirements in this agreement. The only major changes that NBC Sports will sunset on January 1st of 2022. NBC stated that the content from NBC Sports will be moved to USA, the NBC broadcast channel, WLAX and Wave, and also Peacock, which is their streaming service. The staff attorney has reviewed the agreement and it meets with his approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Okay, any questions for Harvey? Okay, now this one's coming in below what we projected, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Contracts approved. Next one is item 7.10. Consider accepting the minutes of August 12th, 2021 of the Cable Advisory Committee. Harvey?
Yes, sir. The committee approved these minutes at their most recent meeting, and they're presented for your acceptance.
Okay. Do we have all we do is accept these? Is that correct, Harvey?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Minutes are accepted. Next
Mr.
one.
Chair?
Yes.
Before we move off that agenda item, I noticed in the minutes, it was thanking Tommy Quarles for his service on the committee.
Mm-hmm.
So is his term up? Is that what's going on?
Yes, ma'am. That was our student representative. We rotate those through. They join usually in August of their junior year and serve for 2 years. And so his term expired at the end of, in August of this year. And so we recognized him at the next meeting of the committee. His replacement was approved. I don't remember, 2 months ago. This board approves Sarah Lodmell as our new student representative. So she's on the board now.
All right.
Or on the committee now. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Item 7.11, consider a one-time increase of $1,000 to gross earnings of all full-time employees on the first payroll in 2022 due to the decrease in real wages caused by increasing consumer index. This was one that we had discussed earlier, and we're going to proceed with a $500 payroll supplement to be grossed up. And our part of the criteria in that motion we had previously was that we would look in December if CPI was over 5%. For December CPI, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Denton, we're actually close to 6%. What this would do is rather than $500 grossed up, this would basically be $1,000 flat, regardless of pay. It'd be a one-time salary supplement, and it would not be grossed up, which means the individual amount per employee would actually be increasing after they'd be responsible for all their own taxes and costs, and the actual per employee would actually be worth probably anywhere from an additional $300 to $250 to $300. Is that correct, David?
Yes, sir. This will be a one-time pre-tax gross payment, like if you're looking for W-2 box 1, W-2 gross wages, and then FPB would be paying, the payroll tax required to pay and the contribution to the retirement system. That amount would be $279,000, increasing from the original board resolution back in September, which was 182,000. So about 200,000 of this would be the actual pay. The rest is payroll tax and retirement contribution.
And that cost that we're responsible for regardless is what, about 27, 28% now, the CERS contribution?
Yes, and then the 765 for Social Security.
Right. So, and this would not be in the base. So when we do the payroll budget for fiscal year 22-23, we would be looking, this would not be, this 280,000 would not be in that base at that time.
Correct. This is a one-time inflation pay.
Right. So what's the board's pleasure in terms of, like I said, we had already previously approved the $500 grossed up, which is probably worth 200 to 250, depending on the employee's tax brackets and so forth. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Supplemental salary is approved. Last one, or not last one, item 7.12. Consider obtaining the service of one or more grant research and writing entities to assist FPB in securing state and federal funds for electric, water, and telecommunications infrastructure and operations. This one that Gary, as you all know, the federal government passed the infrastructure bill. Kentucky is slated definitely on broadband to be eligible for a significant amount of money. And there's also in that grant, in that federal bill, money for water projects and money for EV charging stations. This basically, in talking with Gary and David, apparently there's going to be, we don't even know at this point, the feds have not, U.S. Department of Treasury has not written the regulations, they've not published them. The anticipation is that there's obviously going to be a lot of competition and interest in these monies. At this point, we're not even sure what the regs are going to look like, what the criteria is. Most of the big grant writing firms appear to be filling up. And what I asked David to do is, about a week and a half ago, he sent out a notice, and it's a process we'd used previously when I was in the Attorney General's office. We sent out to, I think, 16 firms that we were interested in someone who could do grant work, the federal and state level, specifically on these federal bills, and asked them to tell us, A, if they had any conflicts, B, if they were doing work in Kentucky, and to give us a resume of who would be doing the work in Kentucky, because the scope of work actually would be determined once we know what the federal rules are. In all likelihood, the contract would be under our small purchasing limit that Gary could award. But I think David has provided everybody with the information, the firms that applied, and what services are offering, what their experience is. And I think based on that review, David, did you want to kind of tell us what firms look like they were most capable of doing the work, and then open it up for board discussion?
Mr. Cubine is a good summary of the process, and we did receive 5 different submittals from these firms. Under this purchase process, it really was technically a request for quote. There is no scoring or anything like that needed. So this is really up to a qualitative review based on what the board would like to see in a firm to represent or to assist FPB with research and grant writing. As you all know, the plant board staff recently, with help from the county, submitted a request for $8 million in funding from the 2021 Kentucky Broadband Deployment Fund. I really have high hopes that that will be successful. So we're already down the road in doing these. I believe whoever we pick, FPB will have a very heavy hand in the completion of the application. So I think all these firms are capable. It's really what the board would like to see in a firm that's before you in the board packet tonight.
Which ones, Gary, you and David looked at them, which firms stood out to you all that, based on their resumes and their experience, look like they would be good firms to work with for the work we might have?
David, can you help me?
Sure, I do think all that are capable of helping us out. I know from my perspective here, one of the bigger things is having assistance in highlighting opportunities. We are definitely watching grant opportunities coming from the federal and state for all of our lines of business, electric, water, telecom. That's a big one for me, is to see where these are coming from, because some are with the state, each individual state, some are with federal offices, federal departments, and they're coming from multiple departments. So just being aware of the opportunities there is half the battle. I think all could do a good job. There is a benefit of the Schmidt firm is a cost sharing with other municipals through KMUA. They're offering, it's a $2,000 monthly fee that would be split amongst the other, all participating utilities that would be assisting in registering with entities that are dispersing grants, with finding the opportunities, and any other minor technical assistance. The grant writing would be separate. So I do see value in partnering with other utilities to cut the cost or to share the cost. Baker Tilly is a firm that I've seen a lot of in dealing with consulting for electric and other utility work. So I definitely respect the work that they put in. All of them look good and like they could do the job. So I really, there's pros and cons of all.
Okay. Would the board want to consider authorizing Gary and David, since it's under the small purchase amount, authorizing Gary and David to go with Smith and do the sharing, which would only cost us what, $200 a month with Smith through KMUA to identify grant opportunities. And then if they identify some things we can apply for, to work with Baker Tilly to actually prepare an application for those grants that looks like we might be eligible for, and help us get those grants in. And like I said, we're not sure when the federal rulemaking is going to happen, what the rules are, what the match requirements, whether it be directly with the federal government or the money will come to the state, whether we'll need to partner with the city or the county. At this point, it's kind of like when we were talking about the EV charging stations earlier, we have no idea, and it could be, based on reading some of the material, it could be at least another 30 to 60 days or more before the federal rulemaking even happens. So, but I think what the goal was here is to try to be positioned. So if we see something, a grant opportunity, we're prepared to move on it. So it's kind of the board's pleasure what we want to do.
Let me ask you a question, John.
Sure.
And you write the cost on that one makes it really favorable.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I'm not clear. I know what we want to do. I know what we're trying to do. I'm just not clear or sure how we go about doing what we want to do. And that kind of dictates which firm that might be advantageous. One of the things in my experience is a firm that is connected to the closest one connected to the agencies that you're trying to get normally has the inside track, because it's a relationship business in some ways, grant writing can be. So I'm happy to do what you're just saying, leave it to them. I just want to make sure that in the consideration, it's just not that, we need to figure out what we exactly want them to do and then calculate the cost by these firms.
Right.
As opposed to just looking at that clear $200 a month and saying, they're representing a lot of people in that $200 a month. And I'm not sure it might not be worth a little bit more investment to get someone where you're the person. But it depends on what we need from that firm.
Exactly.
As opposed to this is just the right cost. 200 is the cost. I think it's a deeper discussion than just that number right there.
Well, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, David or Gary, what I would think from the little bit I know about it, what would happen is Smith working with KMUA and the other members of the other 10 municipals here in Kentucky would kind of do the inventory, and they'd watch for the grant writing, they'd watch for the notice of of grants if they're in the Federal Register or however they're advertised. And then at that point, if they tell us, you know, here's a grant for EV charging, requires this match, here's what it looks like, then at that point, Gary and David need to come back to us and say, this looks like a good opportunity for us to apply for this. We can get $500,000 for this if we want to go that route. And we'd have to decide, but I think one of the things in talking with Gary that seemed prudent to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, is I don't know what Baker Tilly would cost to put on some type of retainer or hold, but to have them locked down, we're not required to use them. We may not want to apply for anything, but if Baker Tilly, if we go to them and say, we'd like to apply for this grant, we've at least got a placeholder there as opposed to Baker Tilly said, yeah, I'd like to help you, but I got 30 other clients I'm doing this for. I can't help you right now.
Well, but that's
kind
kind
of what we're doing.
Yeah. But that's why I'm saying is that, you know, if we don't know, we have no idea what we want from a grant, in a grant perspective, then maybe that's the 200. But if we know that these grants are coming out of the federal legislation are the grants, and we know where we want to go, then I would seek a cost, at least a cost estimate from some of these other guys to say, you know, one of these grant writers offered training for staff, your staff, you know, I might consider that as just as a separate item to come in and help us be more, I don't know what the word is, but better at doing it. I'm just saying that if we know what we want and we know some of the grants we'd like to look at, I would at least ask, get a cost estimate from some of these firms like Tilly and Grants Management Associates, whatever, and see kind of what it is. It might be $10,000, you know, 200. I don't know, but it's, you know.
And this is Jason here. So I write a lot of federal grants. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I do as a professional. And I agree with a lot of Steve is saying here. My experience with this is that you have people in specific areas of who've got their ear to the ground very solidly. They know about these things as they're being written. They're way ahead of the curve on this. And so I would say that anything that we do, we want to give Gary and David maximum flexibility to move on grant opportunities. I don't know. I don't know the process with the plant board, but if there's a way that we can kind of empower them to apply for grants that maybe don't require a match, but just are straight grants, even without our approval, just let them, because sometimes these grants have such a fast turnaround, we don't want to have it dependent on the board vote. We maybe want just to empower them to be able to go after some of these grants carte blanche. But my experience watching the federal money that dropped years ago was that it is like a fire hose. Once it starts coming, you got to be ready to just get your bucket and start patching as quickly as possible. But those people who, maybe they're even individuals who just at least have their ear to the ground and are hearing what's going on and where the grants are starting and how they're being tweaked in real time, that can make or break who's ready to be there to catch that. So.
And I'm for giving flexibility for them to pick and choose for the various circumstances. I'm just saying, my point was, don't exclude the others because of that dollar. Keep it all on the table.
Right.
And whatever the circumstances that we find ourselves or where we want to go, check the others too, because it may.
I was agreeing with Steve on that. That's what I was as well, Steve, because you're right. Absolutely. If there's somebody who has that experience writing that type of federal grant for that department, they're going to have 3 legs up on someone who's may know how to kind of write that, but not specifically what that department's looking for. So you're
as you all know, when the rules come out, the proposed rulemaking, if you're watching it and you've got someone that can help you, there may be a comment you want to make on the proposed rulemaking that all of a sudden makes us eligible for something that the initial rulemaking we would be excluded. And if a slight tweak in the rulemaking would allow us to apply for money. So how do y'all want to proceed?
Well, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I mean, this is kind of hard for me to sort out. So I was like trying to chart some of the, compare apples to apples, but obviously, as you all have said, one of our options is to go ahead and join the other 10 people already that are cost sharing.
Right.
And that's purely for an identification of opportunities.
Right.
And then obviously from there, if there's an opportunity identified that we want to go try to grab, then either go with that same firm or probably pick one of these other four.
Right.
And I like your point about if we went to one of the other fours, and also the other point about it being a fast and furious kind of project, that if we don't have somebody in line saying, oh, okay, I got it, that we might spend too much time even then trying to find someone to write the grant.
And want to make sure it wasn't somebody, I mean, and one of the things we asked in that kind of a request for a quote, which was really more just almost an information business type letter, was we wanted to know who else they were working for in Kentucky, that we weren't hiring a firm to potentially help us write a grant, that we were going to be competing with someone else, another competitor, for that same services for a grant for the same type of money.
Yeah.
And
you sort of identified Baker Tilly, and it did have some pluses, and they all had some pluses, but just the fact that it has a niche in municipal utilities, and have obviously they're helping people currently with all the CARES Act funding and all that good stuff. And price wise, I mean, it was a range from 100 to 350 an hour, depending on which person you get in the organization. But the average looked about 150 to get like a senior consultant level. So that wasn't bad. You know, I think your point about have somebody ready to go is a good one.
And what David did and Adam and others, they kind of polled everybody and came up with those. Wasn't it ultimately, David, 16 firms that you sent the letter out to?
We had 12, and several of those, about half of those came through the American Public Power Association, through their listserv, put those out as folks they knew that were doing this. Some we had with contacts already established through other activities with associations from cable telecom and IT as well. So, and we did a simple web search and found a few more that might fit the bill. So it's a pretty good range.
But I think other than just what we've heard, I don't think there's any, other than getting the business letters in, we've not, as I understand it, we've not had any contact with anybody. It's, I'd ask David and Gary to get a list so that we could get it on the board's agenda this month, so y'all could see firms interested and we could give them some direction if we wanted to on how to proceed.
So John, I guess I'm thinking of an all above approach here. I think we're all hitting it like a basic inventory of everything, kind of put our feelers out so we know what's coming. Some in-house staff training would not hurt at all. There's a lot. And then also, as you guys said, picking one firm to kind of have in the wings, that it could be a generalist firm that could kind of give us the biggest bang for the buck on a retainer. Because, you know, we've got this one infrastructure bill that just passed, and possibly the second one that looks like it's pushed to January or February now. So there's potentially a lot of money coming down. We need to be in the business of being able to catch that for the good of the community, you know.
And I think we heard, what was the figure, Garrett, that we heard Kentucky might be in line on broadband for as much as what, 5 billion?
Correct. That's a kind of rumor. There's a dedicated 5 just for Kentucky. So we are looking for not necessarily just build out a county for the $16 million project. What are we looking for? Like you mentioned, like a EV charge station. And also, we also looking for our own fiber build out project, which is together could be 25-30 million. We hope there could be some federal funding coming our way. But the one part I do want you know, I mean, just like we applied this time with state funding, if you say the Kentucky, the need for is a lot more than 50 million or next round 250, but why is only 62 project applied, including 11 of us? I think a lot of it is because nobody's ready. Means if you don't have a design or engineering, you don't have the system plan, you don't know how to connect a customer, have a proposal. If you just write a grant, what do you base on, right? So I think we are lucky is our staff already done those work before ahead of time. That's why I say we ready too. So it's the same logic applied to us. I hope someone can help us say, Gary, plan board, or Adam, David, you need to do something right now, ahead of the game, doing the engineer design or whatever, prepare you ready. What I'm afraid is when there's publication coming from federal, then there's a deadline coming very, very quickly, go with it. So if just write a grant is one thing, but what do you need to have to write it? That piece really worried me, the truth is, because I really somehow don't know,
Yeah.
We want to be as much we can, but at the same time, really depends on each one, what's their requirement, right? We can jump as as quick as we can, but same time, sometimes you say you have a 2 week and you need to do all the engineering, design, project management, everything. There's no way you can do that piece. So that's the part I'm worried about. I hope someone can help us. But I think you all got a really good point to help us on that. Any of my staff, you have a comment, suggestion, definitely.
Yeah. I know when we all worked with, and your staff did an incredible job, David and his team. We did the application jointly with the county on the broadband for the state funding. I do know it took you all an incredible amount of staff time just to put all that together and all the material, and the staff was able to do it, but it took a lot of staff time. So let me just throw this out. Do we want to, you've got Smith who KMUA has, and we do the cost sharing with 10 other cities, be $200 a month. That's just for identification inventory. Pursue the idea that Steve brought up about possibly seeing if we could get some staff training available to us to help us better identify in the future. And then if we can negotiate with any of the firms that appear to be qualified, Baker Tilly or anyone else, a minimal retainer to hold a spot for us if we want the services at our discretion for any grant we might want to pursue, that they're available and we're on their list, that we've got a spot held if we need it. Do you all want to proceed that way?
Well, John, I'm okay with doing the Smith, because $200 is not that much just to be in the loop with them.
Right, that's what we get paid each month.
Yeah, that's you're right. That's I pay. But again, I do also want. All I was trying to do, the mindset with the others is not to exclude them.
Right.
Utilize them if it's feasible and practical and reasonable. Right. But the $200 a month investment, so that is, I'll make the motion to do that.
Okay. So what's your motion?
What's the name of the group? Smith. To employ Smith, carry them as a retainer at the $200 a month fee. That's my motion.
Okay. Do you want to do anything on the staff training or to hold another firm for grant writing?
Again, that was just my suggestions. I don't know how you put that in some kind of official directive. I just think that they need to consider all the groups.
Sure.
As it becomes relevant in a given particular situation.
Okay.
And then John, I just want to add to that motion too. I don't know if we even need to say this, but I'd like to empower Gary and David to have a little more autonomy with the ability to move things forward without the board's sign off, especially when there's no down payment or major research extended. Because as Gary said, they could come on fast, and there might need to be some groundwork laid to get some ducks in a row so that we can even apply for it. And I don't want us to hold that up if this starts coming real fast and furious,
And if I could add that, John, to my motion,
Okay, so do we know what, we got a combo, Steve, Jason motion?
I think John could sum that all up.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, Mr. Snyder, where are you at?
Yeah.
I thought, I all of a sudden I saw Kathy get on here. She opened up her video because we are at the point now where she really needs to hunker down and figure out what this motion is going to be. All right, so you got a couple of things all together. Number one, we're going to avail ourselves of KMUA's agreement with Schmidt. Okay, $200 a month. Okay, that's one element of it. The second element of it is to direct Gary and the staff to explore with Schmidt and these other folks. Do they do any potential training that we can take advantage of? That's there. The other thing is we can ask them if they got a spam call coming into my phone. The other thing we can do is empower Gary and the staff to apply for grants or to avail themselves of applying for grants that have no matching requirement.
Okay.
Okay. So does that get what everybody said? Now, the only thing we didn't put in there, John, was what you had, which is explore, and this is the fourth thing. Can we have Gary and David explore with these companies that responded to us? Is there a potential to put them on a retainer?
Mm-hmm.
What would that retainer rate be
before
we even had them on their services, so we kind of keep our place in line? Those are the things people have talked about, and I'm fine with all four of them. And if you want me to, I'll make a motion that we do all four of those things at once.
Now, I'll make the motion and let the master motion maker to make the motion.
So Steve has moved, John, that you make the motion.
Right. That I will make the motion that we avail ourselves of KMUA's agreement with Schmidt. That we direct Gary and David to inquire with Schmidt and the other folks that responded to us, the potential for staff training and to identify what fees are there. We also are going to empower Gary and the staff to give them the discretion to apply for grants on an as-needed basis if the grants do not require an agency match. And finally, we also want Gary and the staff to go back to those folks that responded to us and inquire to them about the potential of putting them on retainer.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion's approved. So Gary, you and David need to figure out what we did.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So understated. So understated. I like it.
The next one is item 7.13. Basically would authorize Nichelle. She's done some preliminary work and thinks there may be, you can correct me, Nichelle, but maybe let a half dozen or less employees that as a result of the salary adjustments and everything we did in July, that might need some adjustment. This just authorizes her to get that prepared with a cost estimate and bring it back to us in January.
Correct. Some recent promotions in one of our department has created some situations where tenured employees are being paid less than the employees that they are currently supervising. So staff is asking the board to authorize HR to review these scenarios and situations and then come back to the board in January with some recommendations and estimated budget costs impacts.
And this lets the staff know that Nichelle has identified it and has brought it to us, and that we're going to be reviewing it in January once we've got the data to look at and cost estimate. Is that correct, Nichelle?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Correct.
Okay, do we need to approve you to do that, or just you're advising us that that work's underway?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any problem with Nichelle? I don't think we have to take a vote on this, but does anybody have a problem or want Nichelle to go into any more detail on this?
No.
I think what you said, Nichelle, is probably less than a half dozen employees.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So if there's nobody's got a problem, we don't even know what the cost would be or what all it's going to be, but they have come to Michelle and she's aware of it, and she wants to get that, bring that to us. So next one is item 7.14. Consider award of bid invitation number 1734, groundskeeping services to McDonald's Lawn and Landscaping LLC, and award bid invitation number 1735, snow and ice removal to Stan's Lawn Care. Leanne?
Good afternoon. Support Services has 3 authorized positions for buildings and grounds maintenance. There's a supervisor position and 2 maintenance workers. We also have 2 seasonal employees that are in the budget. All 3 full-time positions are currently vacant. This provided opportunity to look into other options such as contracting for lawn care, landscape maintenance, and snow and ice removal services. Staff anticipates that contracting these duties will reduce the buildings and grounds department down to 1 full-time employee and 1 seasonal employee who would focus mostly on buildings maintenance and repairs. Staff prepared a bid for the groundskeeping services that consist of lawn and landscape maintenance at all the main properties and also includes most of the substations, pump stations, and water tank sites. Bid invitation 1734 was for the groundskeeping services, was sent to 15 lawn care companies with 3 responses received. Staff recommends awarding to McDonald's Lawn and Landscaping as they are the lowest bid meeting the specs. The estimate for total cost of $68,590 is based on once a week mowing services at all locations for 26 weeks and seasonal landscape maintenance. References have been checked and are all favorable. And then we also prepared a bid for snow and ice removal services that consist of clearing driveways, parking lots, sidewalks, and entrances to the administration building, the service center, telecom building, head end, and the water plant. That bid was bid invitation 1735, and it was sent to 15 snow removal companies with 2 responses received. Staff recommends awarding to Stan's Lawn Care as they are the lowest bid meeting specifications. The bid explains that the award is heavily weighted on the price for snow and ice removal for categories A, which is pre-treatment, B is dusting to less than 1 inch, C is 1 inch to 4 inch, and D is 4.1 inch to 7 inches of snow or ice, since these are the most common snow and ice events in our region. Staff used data from last year's winter weather to calculate the estimate of $29,535. The estimate includes 3 pre-treatments, 6 dusting to less than 1 inch events, and 4 1 to 4 inch events for each location. The estimate also includes 1 4.1 inch to 7 inches event for each location, although we did not have a snowfall of this size last year. References have also been checked on stands and are favorable. We estimate a savings of approximately $22,600 per year by utilizing contractors. The estimation is based on comparing salary and benefits of the 2 maintenance workers and the salary of 1 seasonal employee to estimated services needed on contract. The supervisor position and one of the seasonal positions is not included in the comparison because they will still be needed if contractors are utilized. Salary and benefits for the 2 maintenance workers and 1 seasonal employee totals $120,789 per year. Estimated lawn care and landscape maintenance for 1 year is $68,590. Estimated snow and ice removal services is $29,535, and the contracts have been reviewed by the staff attorney. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
And Leanne, no employee is losing their job. We're not laying anybody off or replacing an existing employee with a contractor. This is simply to utilize contractors rather than fill in those spots.
That's correct.
And we've had trouble over the years somewhat trying to retain some people in these positions. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions for Leanne or on these contracts or the process or going this route as opposed to filling the positions? Okay.
I think Mr. Snyder's talking, but his mic is off.
Yeah, John, I have one question.
Sure.
And if we approve this, when will these contracts start? I mean, I know the mowing will start in the spring, but if we do the snow and ice removal, will it start with this winter we've got coming up now, or?
Yes, the way we wrote the contract is it would start immediately so that both contractors could prepare for the work that they have coming. Like McDonald's, that gives them plenty of time to know if they need to hire more help or need more equipment.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? If not, do we have a motion?
So
Motion
moved.
to approve.
We got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Contracts awarded. Last item, I hate this, end of the meeting. Consider award of bid invitation number 1738 metal poles to Brownstone Electric Company in the amount of $43,973. Jennifer?
Well, I'm going to do this one for Jennifer. Staff prepared a bid for metal poles to replenish depleting inventory levels. The orders for poles depend on new development and the replacement of bad or damaged poles. The invitation was sent to 10 vendors and 3 responses received. After evaluating all the bids, staff recommends awarding to Brownstown Electric Supply as they were the lowest bid meeting specifications.
And they'll be able to deliver timely, or, I mean, is this one of the areas that they're having trouble getting supplies, or are they pretty timely at this point?
This is 8 to 10 weeks, so it's not horrible.
Yeah. And how are we doing on the wooden poles? Are we in pretty good shape on those?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good with wood poles.
Okay. Okay, any discussions about this particular bid? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Contracts approved. Now I'll turn to
Mr.
our
Chairman?
official motion
Mr. Chairman?
maker, Mr. Snyder.
Before I make the motion everybody wants to hear,
Yes.
I am sitting here at work and I got a phone call and my boss came in and a couple other things happened. Kathy, I'd like to be recorded as voting yes on items 7.2, 7.8, 7.9, and 7.10. If there's no objection, Mr. Chairman.
This is not the General Assembly.
Assembly, yeah.
I just want everything to be right.
You need to file the motion. I filed the proper papers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Do we have
I just want to make sure everybody knew that. I would like to make a motion that everybody have a Merry Christmas and that this meeting is adjourned.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor of adjournment and a Merry Christmas?
Aye.
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 Thank you guys.
Thank you all. See you all next year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas.